This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
Dumela! Good afternoon and welcome to a wonderful and sunny Tswalu Kalahari Reserve. We are just enjoying the wonderful scene that is panning out in front of us. All these beautiful cumulus clouds. Good afternoon, my name is Carl, and behind camera is Craig. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining us on this wonderful and sunny day that we are having here this afternoon on Tswalu. So welcome aboard your very own live safari from the African wild. Mother Nature's being very creative this side, and then also just giving us a very sunny and warm afternoon. We don't mind the sun this side. We receive quite a bit of it. But when we have the creative scheme across the beautiful sky, it is such a treat. So, once again, my name is Carl. Thank you. And Craig is behind camera. Thank you for joining us on this very live and interactive safari this afternoon here on Tswalu Kalahari. We are going to be heading out and looking for everything and anything. We have missed everybody. We had a little bit of technical issues, but myself and Craig scaled up at a very large mountain to sort that problem out for everybody. And we are very happy to be here. So quite warm today, but it is good. With a cloud cover, it keeps things nice, relatively cool. We had about 30 odd degrees Celsius this afternoon. That's about 86 degrees Fahrenheit. And we got about a 7% chance of rain. In my books, that's about a 0. But you can be hopeful. Hopefully it comes under the cover of darkness. And we are going to be meandering slowly out west, so chasing the setting sun this afternoon. And we are going to be looking for anything. We do have a rough understanding of where the wild dogs might be. And I think if we can have them for the afternoon, if they become mobile, we had them fairly static the other morning. So if we can have some movement from those animals for this afternoon, it would be absolutely amazing. But regardless of them, there is lots of things to delve into out here. And just like you guys know, anything and everything is up for grabs for us. So if you're under the age of 18, you can pop us an email at kidsquestions@wildearth.tv. Anything you would like to know about Tswalu, you just drop me a comment or a question and I will be sure to get back to you. For everybody else, register on the Wild Earth website and then head over to that live Safari page where you would submit the questions there. Anything you might want to know, want to understand better. Remember, we all are learning here. I'm learning every single day. Not only about this beautiful place, but the great continent, this big beautiful world, and then most importantly myself. The sour grass is just dominating this area, and it just creates such a beautiful scene. Just look how it is moving slowly by the gentle breeze of the wind, coming in from the south-southeastern corner right now, and it's just really beautiful to look at. And I mentioned that it does have a very distinctive odor. It's like this very sour aromatic smell, and it's a very dominant smell within the open velds of Tshwalu through the summer and rainy period. And your shoes really know about it afterwards, and as well as your legs. If you don't wear long pants, they've got poison glands on them to deter browsing or grazing animals, and the poison can create a bit of irritation on the skin if you don't have any protection. But that is one very, very clever way of deterring animals from nibbling on you. And then grasses have got a lot of tactics on how to deter grazers. That is just one form of defense. Moving beautifully, look at that. So it creates a lot of cover. You can imagine a leopard moving through this stuff. Obviously that low-laying posture, it could just disappear through this. It almost looks like a continuous ocean, how it just moves and shimmers. It makes me think about being on the ocean. Obviously the ocean is a very big part of my life, and I miss it terribly. But this really gives me the feeling like I'm near the beach and looking at the beautiful water. Dylan, how many times a year does it rain in Tshwalu? We fall into a vegetative group in South Africa referred to as the savanna biome. And the savanna biome is categorized of having a summer rainfall, which we are currently in. And December we've had good rains, and then the years that I've been here in Tshwalu, we've received rains January and February. So hopefully we do receive some late, much needed rains, although we have had great rains already. I think if I'm not mistaken, we've had around about 400 mils across the entire reserve, which is great, where we only receive between 200 and 400 as our annual rainfall period. We have gone through a period where we have been below average, so the rain that has touched this thirsty land is much needed, animal and plant life. Unlike the guys on the eastern side of the country, our friends in Djuma, which receive up to 1,000 mils per annum. That's a lot of water. So you think about how the plants and the animals are adapted to survive with very little resources, moisture and content. And they have special adaptations to fade those tricky periods. It's remarkable. But yeah, summer is our rainfall period, and then we can have cold fronts that blow very far north, but that brings like a light drizzle, like a fog almost type condition, not physical rain. Rain is a summer thing in Tshwalu. Beautiful scene. So, Craig, do you think we should just move on a bit? Yeah, I think we're going to move on here, folks. Continue this beautiful scene. We're going to head west. We're going to be using this cut line over here, and we're going to be going straight almost into the sun. This road's going to bend slightly to the right, and we're going to be searching for little things along the way. It's still pretty hot. Wild dogs do tend to move in the cooler parts of the afternoon, but I'm hoping now with this cloud cover available, they take an opportunity. An animal will take an opportunity when it is there. Oh, Cenac. What rare plant species does Tshwalu have? There is one or two species, Cenac. By the love of me, I cannot remember the scientific names. I can't even remember the names. There is one or two plants that are very rare. Dylan Smith, I think it was last year, recorded a plant on Tshwalu in the mountains of Tshwalu that had only been recorded in South Africa a couple of times. So there is one or two species, and I can try and find out for you. seeing that, because obviously that is broadening my knowledge. I'm still on the search for that vulture question we had. Was it yesterday? It was yesterday. The days kind of blur together sometimes. But I will take a look from Dylan Smith. Obviously, he is the encyclopedia here in this area. And I'll get a list of 1 or 2 species which are rare within this area. But I'll write that down now. What we're going to do is we're going to start the vehicle. We're going to start the old trusty number 9. And we are going to head west. And we're going to be search for anything as we meander along. And we have 3 or 4 blocks. So these areas that the road basically runs around the borderline of these areas, we call these areas blocks. And we have about 3 or 4 blocks to go. So it is a beautiful call there, that lovely white-browed sparrow weaver. Beautiful call. And those nests obviously being very distinctive. Look at that. So when you get into birding, obviously IDing birds is a very, very entertaining thing. But when it is a prolonged activity, you start getting to collecting and understanding feathers. You find a random feather and you try and understand from which bird it might be, and even understanding where on the bird this feather might have come from. But then relying and looking at these beautiful structures and recognizing them is such a treat, and finding them as well, because some birds are very, very sneaky. And on this continent, obviously birds have a very, very, very high predator ratio in comparison to, for example, the UK. So birds have to be very sneaky on where and how they build their nests. And you can see this nest here, it's basically encased in this thorny camel thorn. And that's a very efficient way on how you are going to deter any type of predator. Although there are some that get into those nests, such as the boomslang, very specialized boreal tree snake, and then as well as the Cape cobra, which we have seen a few times visiting a few nests along the lines. But a very messy structure, very bulbous structure, and then you can see multiple nests within this tree. That is downright white-browed sparrow weaver. And then we have the call to rely on as well. Those sharp, jumbled notes. Gives the bird away very easily. Beautiful. Yeah, all the insects, all the flies buzzing past us. Just lovely. Ooh, Bobby Blue, what's my favorite snake on Tswali and why? I would have to say the boomslang. The Cape cobra is a beautiful snake. Its ecology and ethology is amazing, but for me the boomslang, its striking green appearance along with its very, very large eye, I find them absolutely beautiful. And it is a very beautiful snake to photograph as well. If you have one in a tree or in a nest, it really creates a beautiful scene of beautiful contrast of colors for one to enjoy. So boomslang or tree snake, it's a very specialized snake. It really is super fast and really well adapted into trees. And obviously the research going on Tswali, we found that a few things that we thought we were right previously, but from the research we are beginning to doubt that. You'd think that when a boomslang sees you, it would go to the top part of the tree. We have found that boomslangs drop out the tree in a hole. But they really are well adapted into these tree systems, hunting lizards, hunting geckos, hunting chameleons, and then as well as birds and chicks. And it's the only snake, it's one of 2 or 3 snakes in South Africa that are able to recognize stationary prey. So a Cape cobra, if I stand in front of a Cape cobra but I do not move a muscle, it would see me as absolutely nothing. But a boomslang, he would be able to see me. So a very, very beautiful snake, and I would have to say my favorite. I hope that answers your question there, Bobby. And snakes are very, very important, and people think that snakes are dangerous and they're just going to bite you. But they are more afraid of you than you are of them. We're obviously a really, really big individual, and they are really tiny. And it's just the misnotion or the misnomer that they have been painted with over the years. Lovely. Oh, there's one over there, Craig. Inside the camel thorn here on our right. Just... Ava, what is the most dangerous animal that lives in the Kalahari? Well, it depends on how you want to look at it. I would have to say in the Kalahari, the thing that scares me the most is buffalo. Down, hands down. Buffalo it is. So you find in Botswana, in the northern parts of the Okavango Delta, you find very large herds of buffalo. And we have buffalo here on Swala as well. I would have to say buffalo is definitely the most dangerous animal. A lion's always sleeping. A snake doesn't bother about you unless you are, really frustrating it. But a buffalo is, I don't like it for some reason. So I'd have to say the buffalo. It's very big, very powerful. They move in fairly large herds depending where you are. And the telltale signs of when they're going to do something is fairly hard. And then they also got this behavior of wrapping around. So if something happens, they will literally circle around you and come from behind, which makes it very, very dangerous. So if you're ever walking guests, you have to make sure that, obviously, number one is safety. You never, ever, ever jeopardize with safety. And then, obviously, thereafter is enjoyment. But buffalo, yeah. Buffalo. Always looks like he's angry. Where's my money? All right, let us meander along. We are going to take this trusty steed further west. And we are going to go slowly. And we are going to see what we can pick up along this beautiful cut line. We have had an influx of crickets over the past 2 weeks after those good rains. Yeah, I am in my zen state right now. Literally my zen state. There's just something about the Kalahari that's really calming. I don't know if it's the scenery, the open scenery, or the open sky, but there is just something very humbling and very settling about the Kalahari. So when we're out here, we do have this feeling of almost being truly connected, which I hope that everybody has. And if you don't, get in touch with nature, spend some time just sitting in a park and just looking and observing all aspects of nature, from the clouds to the grass blowing in the wind. It is a real treat. Ooh. Here's a big chap. Everybody would know these guys. Oh, he's moving. See on the plant here, Craig. Let me just go a little bit more forward for you. See the corn cricket. Oh, we've got a nice corn cricket here, guys. So this is the favorable period for these. Yeah, you're on the right lines. You're getting warmer. There he's sitting just behind the leaf. His long antennae are very distinctive. And then those legs. You can see it's part of the cricket or grasshopper family. Orthoptera. Very, very beautiful species. And we have a massive influx of them now. This is the period that they are around in full steam. But then we've also had a massive influx of the burrowing crickets. We did see one or two when we were looking at meerkats a couple of months ago actually now. But there is hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them around at the moment. But these guys are chomping down on literally everything. Even if you had to pick it up, it would even go for your finger. They will not hesitate to bite. And at the moment, if you find one on the road, you'd find other members eating off it. They do eat each other, and if you think about, myself and Craig were talking this morning, if you think about the nutrients load that one would receive from another body like that, I mean, basically it's like a full parcel all the stuff that you need in order to grow. And they start off as little green individuals. And as they get older, they get dark, just like this individual here in frame. And they are really creepy looking. Part of the long-horned cricket group. Always still alive. What is that? Ivsy, could you just go with that message there again for us, please? I didn't get the middle part of it. I heard it was from a Renee. Renee, do we ever experience a decline in the number of insects? Yes, that would be a yearly cycle. Insects really enjoy the warmer periods, so they need heat in order to operate, and higher conditions the better, not too hot, but just in the higher regions. Winter is where we would have a massive decline in insect life. They would obviously, before the approach of winter, they would lay eggs, and then obviously other individuals would burrow and they would wait out the winter period. And then on the approach of summer again, when it gets a bit warmer, we have like this bust of life. And where we haven't seen these guys for a couple of months, and now December, January, they are just everywhere. And then coming towards winter again, we'll see a massive decline in insect diversity. There's not a lot of insects here in winter. It's really cold. So an average night is below zero, almost every night. And then Tswalu has recorded -10. I mean, that is cold. My bones do not like the cold weather, and -10 is really cold. And most mornings we have to leave our vehicles running for at least a half an hour to get them warmed up before we go collect our guests for our midday drive. And when we set out at about 9, 10 o'clock, and we stay out the whole day tracking various animals like aardvark and pangolin, which is the best period. Coming to Tswalu to see a pangolin or aardvark in the summer is a bit of a tricky thing, but winter is it's basically like the migration for us. It is the best period in order to see those lovely animals. But if you're interested in insects, this is the favorable period for them. There's 2 there. You see the smaller one? Holding on for dear life. So there's a smaller one just below the larger one there. I'm just going to hold on to this. Oh, he's going to move. So maybe I'm not going to hold on to it. It is just blowing tremendously and does make a bit of a disturbing or distorted image. It's obviously using the external mouth parts. They have external moving mouth parts, and that is obviously used to chomp down on plant and as well as animal matter. And I picked one up last night and it gave me a good bite. Not piercing the skin, not breaking the skin, but from those little jaws there is quite a lot of force. It actually made me pick him up again and then put him down very quickly. Great. See from the shield as well that it's a very distinctive individual. Alrighty, well, let's leave this little animal to be and let's carry on here. If we find another one in a bit more of a static, not wind-blowing situation, that would be a bit better for us to view. So once we get a little bit further west, we're going to stop the vehicle, and what we're going to be doing is just walking slightly into the block. We had somebody tell us that these dog tracks were not far off the road, and they looked fairly fresh. The gentleman did walk in, and I think he did see them, so which is really good for us. That makes me think that they're not too far into the block, so we don't have to venture too far in to find these lovely animals. And the most important thing, Craig, what is my favorite part about nature? Whoa. Sheesh, a lot of hard questions this afternoon, guys. Everything. Its continuous ability to astound me and wow me every single day. From everything. Because it is so remarkable to think about various aspects and components that all fit together so nicely, that we have the ability to be and to thrive on this beautiful big blue planet. And then the complexity in it gives me goosebumps, literally gives me goosebumps. And then also I can never know it all, so I'm constantly stimulated on a day, month, a yearly cycle to know more and understand more, because it's a humbling experience when you look at all these various beautiful little creatures and how they fit in with everything and how everything works with them and then would not work with them, without them, sorry. So I'd have to say, yeah, that's the intriguing part for me, and that keeps me locked on, almost locked jaws continuously. You can see it starts getting a little bit thicker now. And this section over here, the trees aren't very tall. The tallest trees here would be the shepherd's tree and then obviously the camel thorn. And then these other shrubs are quite small and shrub-like. This will be blackthorn and as well as velvet raisin bush. Actually, we might take a look at that. Let's find a good one. I'm always so thankful for cloud cover when it is here, because the sun this side, you don't play jokes. No jokes. Is this one we can use? No. So the velvet raisin bush is a really remarkable tree, and something where the true inhabitants of Southern Africa would have utilized quite heavily. Let's use this one right up here. So on the left of here, Craig's going to get us onto this beautiful little shrub. It is a very small individual, but what I want you folks to focus on is the stems of this beautiful tree. The velvet raisin bush. This is a very, very small one, and the leaves are very distinctive of this shrub-like bush. But the true inhabitants of Southern Africa would have utilized this tree for various purposes, especially for making the shafts of arrows, because they are very, very pliable when they're wet, the stems themselves, and once you bend them in the correct manner and they dry out, they keep that shape. So they were brilliant parts of the tree, a very, very useful part of the tree in order to make the shafts of arrows. People also used them for the bow purpose as well. And it's still used today. So when we get a bit further, I'll really try and find a better one, and we'll look at the fruiting bodies, because it is starting to fruit right now. And when I find a better one to show you folks, we'll get all deep into this tree. But for now, I'm going to send you over to Pinder for a little while, just to say hello.
Good afternoon from and beyond Pinder Private Game Reserve, where for the first time in about 36 hours, we've started to see bits of blue sky coming through the clouds. It has been raining non-stop since about 11 a.m. yesterday, And this is basically the first opportunity that we've had to come back out onto the reserve without being washed away, basically. And right away we've managed to find a pair of white rhinos. It looks like a mother and her almost grown calf. And then just behind them, there's also a pair of giraffes as well. It looks like two males. And it looks like they're busy sparring, play fighting, standing side by side. What a lovely start to the afternoon. My name is Damon, and behind the camera this afternoon is Glenn. And to be honest, we're just glad to be back out, everybody. So we're going to probably be sticking relatively close to where the lodge is for the afternoon. So we're going to be exploring kind of the valleys and the hills that are kind of extending around behind me. No one's been driving out here today because of how wet it's been. So who knows what we'll find. And it's nice that we've managed to start off with these rhinos, though. Like I say, with no one having been driving for the last kind of 24 hours or so, you never know where the animals have gone, and it's almost like everything has been reset. So we're going to have to do a bit of exploring this afternoon to see what we can find. But a good bet is often to head towards areas that have got good grazing, good lush grass. And that's exactly what we did, and we were rewarded with these two white rhinos. There's actually a third rhino that's in this area. I haven't seen it again for a little while. It was almost like it was creeping through the bushes to the left of where that rhino is that's standing facing towards us. That looks like Mum. And then her youngster to the right. And I'm wondering if it's not maybe a territorial bull that's coming in to investigate this female. Regardless of what it is, it didn't seem to notice these two rhinos because it kind of carried on walking straight past them, whereas both of these rhinos evidently noticed it because they both started to lift their nose and smell, and their ears pricked forward. But yeah, I didn't get much of a view of it. All I saw were feet, 4 big feet, kind of underneath the canopy of the thickets of the guaris and the scented pod thorns down there. Looks like these rhinos are slowly moving up the hill, though. It'd be lovely if they come towards us. Probably you're asking if rhinos are still endangered here at Ambionpinda. Well, they as a species, this particular kind of rhino here, this is the southern white rhino. They are not classified just yet as endangered. They're kind of one step above, or one step better, if I can put it that way, than endangered. So we would classify them as vulnerable. So they're vulnerable to becoming endangered and to becoming extinct if careful conservation isn't put in, or careful conservation practices aren't put into place. We're very lucky here at Ambionpinda because of our careful conservation practices that we are able to, we have a very good population of both white and black rhino. Obviously the black rhino we see less frequently, but that's just how black rhinos are. They live at lower densities than these white rhino. You don't find them in big groups as often as you do white rhinos. So as a species, they are in trouble. But here, or I suppose here at Ambionpinda, if we didn't have the careful measures that we have in place, they'd be in trouble here too. But thanks to our anti-poaching team and our conservation team here at Ambionpinda, we can say that we do have a pretty good population. We do get to enjoy frequent sightings of these white rhino. They're almost playing a game with us now. We've we've shifted backwards and forwards about 4 or 5 times since we got to these two rhinos, because they keep going behind the bush and then they come out again. And I'm wondering if they are not just maybe with this wind. There's still a bit of a strong breeze blowing in from the south, and it might be with all the wind. It's maybe kind of making smells swirl around, and they're not quite able to determine exactly where smells are coming from or where sounds are coming from. It can be very disruptive, this wind, especially to an animal like a rhino with its big ears and its big nostrils. It relies so much on its sense of smell and on its hearing to analyze its surroundings. And so often in windy times, rhinos can be quite jittery. Oh, never mind. Glenn says one of them is just laying down. I can't quite see from where I'm sitting, but that dispels that. They're obviously not feeling very jittery. If the one is feeling comfortable enough to lie down. And I wonder if I'm just going to see if I can get a better view. I'm going to look through my binoculars to see if I can see which rhino that is that's lying down. It looks like the calf. The calf is lying down. And then mom is still standing up. Having a look through my binoculars, I'm sure you guys can use the zoom of the camera. Look at how her body is still quite dark, quite wet from the torrential downpour that these rhinos have been exposed to over the last day and a half. And I wonder if it's not maybe now, because the rain has abated and there's this breeze, they may be coming out of where they've maybe been trying to shelter from the rain a bit. They've come out into the open, maybe to try and dry off. Maybe the ground is a bit... Maybe that's why they're coming up the hill. Of course, lower down the hill, there'll be pools that will be collecting. It might be a bit boggy, a bit muddy down there, which of course rhinos normally love on hot days. But maybe now, 36 hours of rain is a lot. Maybe they've had enough and they're trying to get away from that, trying to dry off a little bit. And whether it's... We're just going to leave the rhinos for now. Glenn has just remarked that the two giraffe are busy sparring again. Malinga, you're asking a very interesting question. You're asking about the social structure of white rhinos. Well, Malinga, typically what we see is mothers with their calves. They'll move around together. And you may even sometimes see, we've shown it a couple of times on the show, where there's been a mother that has two calves that are of slightly different sizes. And normally what that is a mother with her actual calf, her own baby. And then typically what happens is that when a mother rhino is about to give birth to her next calf, she'll push her previous calf away. And that calf it's not quite yet fully grown, and it will often go and seek out another rhino cow with a similarly aged calf to itself. And it will then kind of attach itself to that group. And so you'll see these little groups of 3 rhinos moving around. Sometimes it can be more. Sometimes you get a mother and her calf, and then that satellite calf, maybe 2 sets of that, and you maybe get 6 rhinos together, or 3 sets of that, plus a couple of other sub-adults that are moving around independently. So and that's how you often see groups of maybe 6, 7, 8, 9 rhinos moving together. Resources will also bring them together. If there's a really good patch of grazing, maybe if there's a fire that's moved through an area, and then the grass starts to sprout after the first bit of rain, you might get big groups of white rhinos that just come there circumstantially to take advantage of the abundance of food. And then the most I've seen on Ambi on Phinda is about 17 white rhinos in one pretty narrow vista, which was absolutely unbelievable to see. And then Malinga, and then of course so females and the youngsters and then sub-adults tend to be quite gregarious. But then when it comes to big adults, fully grown territorial males, they tend to live alone. And they have their territories that they actively defend. They try and keep other adult male rhinos out of. They will tolerate a rival bull coming into their territory to drink or to feed, but only if he behaves submissively. So if he goes and tries to court a female that he's interested in, or if he tries to scent mark, then the local bull will go and chase him out, or go and behave aggressively towards him. But that's basically the social structure, Malinga. I hope that answers your question. Those 2 giraffe that are still busy sparring there at the back. Safari Sue, you're asking if black rhinos and white rhinos would ever mate. Safari Sue, there are 2 different species, and they've got pretty different, I suppose some of their behaviors are quite similar, but they're very different animals, and so no, they wouldn't mate. I have heard of an instance in a zoo once where I cannot remember if they actually mated or if it was done artificially, but in the zoo there was a hybrid of between a black and a white rhino. It didn't live very long though, unfortunately. Safari zoo, as can often happen with these with hybrids, they tend to be either very short-lived or, well, most of the time infertile, unable to produce offspring. But yeah, there's actually a photograph of it on the internet, of this hybrid black and white rhino calf. That I think it's a black and white photograph. If I remember correctly, its lip was somewhat reminiscent. For some reason, the picture that I saw, most of its features reminded me more of a white rhino than of a black rhino. I think its mouth was more reminiscent of a white rhino, its ears maybe more so of a black rhino from what I can remember. Yo, those giraffes are still going at it though. Just having a look through my binoculars, have a look at their horns and how they're pretty long in relation to their head size. The heads are not too big, necks are relatively thin, so they look like two relatively young bulls. Like we were saying earlier, they just seem like and their movements are quite slow and lots of pauses in between, not too violent. So just some sparring going on, nothing too serious. Practicing their moves for when they're adults and they will need to fight for females. But it's almost like they're moving lazily. Like it's almost like he wants to give his companion a fair warning that he's about to swing, and then his companion can move out of the way, so to speak. So pretty to look at though. Look at how that one on our left is a much lighter color than the one on the right, or at least their necks are slightly different in color. That one on the right already going quite dark, almost like a chocolatey brown, whereas the one on the left more like a light milk chocolate color. A cheap shot there. Waited for his friend to walk forward so he couldn't see him, and then swung at him. We actually saw something a little bit earlier, and Glenn and I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen it before. We were sitting with a giraffe that was lying down, and unfortunately she stood up and she moved across the road into some thick bush where we couldn't see her anymore. But before she crossed the road, obviously it's been raining so much that it's been it's obviously very, very, very muddy. And you think, like, with an animal with these huge hooves, it must surely get mud stuck between its toes. And how does it get rid of that? I'm just going to let Glenn pan across in front of me, because we've now got an enormous group of giraffe that are busy descending upon us, or busy marching towards us. So we'll have a look at them, seeing as those two that were sparring have moved off. But yeah, so thinking about how, does that kind of thing bother a giraffe? Because sometimes you see, especially on the harder roads here, you'll sometimes see after big rains, if giraffes have been walking in mud, you sometimes see that mud from in between their hooves where it's been left behind on the road. It's quite neat. But we watched this female giraffe stand up from her rest, and as she started walking, the first thing she did is she walked over to a clump of grass and she started wiping her hooves on this grass as if she was trying to get the mud out from in between her hooves. It was the most amazing thing. Never seen that before. But look at how many of them there are. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 giraffes. And just looking through my binoculars, they all seem to have pretty robust horns, and horns that are either almost completely bald or starting to go bald. So all of them males. Little bachelor group of young male giraffes, varying ages. And again, just like those first two we saw, varying kind of coat patterns and coat colorations. It's very pretty to see. Look at those four in the road there in front of us. Sure. And they just came out of nowhere. All of a sudden there were 8 giraffes in front of us. I think Glenn and I might spend a bit more time here, just to see what these giraffes get up to, and maybe try to see if we can't get a slightly better view of that white rhino.
Welcome to my car. This is Wendy, and she's my favorite. She would love to have your name engraved on her so you can be with her every single time she goes on a safari here in Djuma. If you become a Wild Earth Explorer, you will have the opportunity to buy an engraved tag which we will attach to her. We will make sure to send you a digital picture to show you exactly where you are sitting on her. You will have front row seat in every single sighting.
Hi, I'm Damon, and I come to you live every day from and beyond Phinda Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I think the most underrated wild animal is the buffalo, and I think many people want to see them because they're a member of the Big Five. But then once it's ticked off the list, it's on to go and look for things like big cats or herds of elephants. It's quite a sensory overload, taking in their smell and the sounds of them moving around you.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
My name is Taylor McCurdy and I work for Eco Training. I love hearing from all of the viewers. However, I particularly enjoy those of you who have been watching for a few years. Your questions are just so advanced and they really get me thinking. If you'd like to ask a question on Wild Earth, you need to register on our website. Once you've done that, head to the live safari page and submit your questions below the live feed.
Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
This is a battle of two great carnivores of the African wilderness. Whew. Whoa! You don't want to be under those jaws. Definitely, this round goes to the lion. Look at that. Fantastic.
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
Welcome back to and beyond Phinda. You've joined us just in time to watch the 9th male giraffe join the party, so to speak. Here he is striding down the road, coming straight towards us. This is really something, everybody. There's these 9 in front of us here, and then there's still those 2 that were sparring off to the left that look like they might come up the hill and join all of these young males up here as well. 11 giraffe in one scene. It's going to be insane if they do that. Here we go. It looks like these 2 in the road here moving off to go and start feeding. Have a look at how he's putting his head right into the top of that tree there. So let's see if I can see what kind of tree it is. It actually looks like a magic guarri from here, which, for those of you who have felt the leaves of a magic guarri before, you'll know they're not the nicest or the softest, most succulent, juicy feeling leaves. They're quite papery. Can't imagine that they'd be very, very tasty, very nutritious, but maybe he's found some new growth there, some new leaves that are growing. By comparison, there's that cluster of bulls off to the right that have encircled what looks like a young umbrella thorn. And they're also busy feeding. They've been feeding there for quite some time now. Those leaves, on the other hand, look pretty juicy. Lots of small leaflets. This bull in front of us here looks like he's quite content to feed on those guaris for now. Just looking through my binoculars, see if you can see. It's a bit tough because he's now got his head behind a bush, but see if you can see his tongue coming out and almost acting like a hand. Red, you're asking what animals giraffes are related to. Their closest relative is an animal, a very elusive animal, an animal that I have long dreamt about seeing ever since I was very small, but I've never had a chance to see one. A very elusive animal from the jungles of West and Central Africa, and it's called an okapi. And I don't have a photograph of it in my mammal book here, but I'll try and describe it to you. Or of course you can go and Google it as well while I'm trying to describe it to you. So it looks very much like a giraffe in terms of its long legs and its long neck, but imagine if it were slightly more compact, so a slightly shorter neck and slightly shorter legs, and then it's got a very dark chocolatey brown body with zebra stripes on its rump and on its shoulders. So very, very, very pretty animal in terms of its markings. And like I said, very similar in terms of the actual build of the giraffe. And I suppose it looks like what, talking about the evolution of giraffes, and there's that whole thing talking about how giraffes must have at one stage been like okapis. They must have had shorter necks, been smaller animals living in denser forests, and as the forests kind of retreated and the savanna grasslands opened up, these giraffes were able to grow bigger because they had more space to move around. And then they evolved this long neck, presumably or massive size and the long neck, to occupy a niche that not too many other animals are able to occupy, able to feed on parts of the trees that other animals can't access. But these giraffes are marching straight towards us, and it's going to be amazing if they come right past the vehicle. While we wait for them to do that, though, let's head across to Tswalu to see what they've got for us.
Who's that? Damon. Well, it sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun there with Damon. We have just stumbled across, or upon, two beautiful bat-eared foxes. And we are seeing quite a lot of them at this point in time is because they are denning. So finding that the pups are very active outside the den sites, and this gives us a great opportunity at viewing these beautiful and somewhat nocturnal creatures. Those massive ears, wow. There's quite a lot of vegetation in between us and them, but hopefully if we're patient enough, they give us a better view. They are just so entertaining to watch. You'll have times where these pups get a bit bored out and around the den, and they start playing with each other. And a game of tag is by far the most played game here. That's very important for these young ones to practice and develop muscles in the correct manner via this activity. You can see the swirl there just off the central part of the picture, just the left-hand side. That'll be from the excavation of that burrow or den site. You can see the big ears just popping through the grass there. So anywhere from 4 to 6 they can have. In terms of pups, they can have 4 to 6, and that's usually between October and November. So these individuals here, depending on their size, they could be about a month to about 2 months of age. And then both parents are very devoted to the development and protection of these little ones. Obviously giving them the best chance at survival. This big cloud is over us, obviously giving us a very overcast appearance right now. to watch them feeding it in the daylight hours or under the cover of darkness is a real treat. They are very mobile and very active. There the ears are just moving around. Bok Makiri busy calling in the distance. Obviously, the amount of cover that is available right now, this also increases their chance at survival. Quite a lot of things would predate on them. Big birds, pythons, you name it. So the available cover really allows them to find concealment and obviously to be hidden away from the watchful eyes of predators. Ah, there's the ears. large ears. Jackie, why are they called bat-eared foxes? Well, if you look at the appearance of a bat, bats generally have fairly largish, elongated ears. And whereas they need to use their ears for echolocation, so basically high-frequency pitches and squeaks that are sent out, and then bounce of objects, and then the ears receive these sounds. So bat-eared foxes, they have very elongated and large ears, and they use them for locating prey under the ground. They have a very, very acute sense of hearing, and while they are foraging, they would have a very hunched-like appearance, ears projected straight towards the ground, and with these very large ears, they are able to hear the activity of insects under the ground. So if there's something under there, they would hear obviously the scurrying and the moving, and then with their very long claws, which are a very, very useful tool for these animals to dig, they will unearth various forms of insects. Termites make a very large part of their diet, as do most animals out here. A lot of animals utilize termites as a viable source of food, although as humans we don't like them because they just do so much damage to timber. But they are so important for the ecosystem. But then they'll go after grasshoppers and geckos, crickets, you name it. They have a very, very specialized skull structure, or dental, let me say that. They have more teeth than any other mammal. So they have between 64 and 50 teeth in their mouth. And those teeth are used, there it is. Ah, lovely. Those teeth are used to chomp down on various insect bodies. Because insect bodies are very hardy to break down because of the material that makes up the animal's body, which is called chitin. Very, very hardy and durable material, which has given insects the ability to dominate ecosystems across the world. So basically they have 1 to 4 extra sets of molars. More teeth than any other mammal. It is remarkable. So if we had to find a skull of a bat-eared fox, we can recognize it from its dental structure. But those very, very large bat-like ears, this is where this animal gets the name from, bat-eared fox. Cool, look at that. I didn't get the person's name there. Are they territorial? No. Bat-eared foxes are not territorial. They'll have home ranges that they move through, and basically a pair would have a general home range that it would move through until it gets to the boundary of another couple or another pair, let's so to say. They can sometimes act quite aggressively around a food source, but generally you have behavior being very placid. So not territorial, not demarcating and defending an area for the resources, but generally just moving around within a given circumference for foraging and as well as denning, just like these individuals are here. You can see them just busy moving around there. that fern-like, very wavy plant in front there, that is the elandsbean, which gives great ground cover. Also grows in areas of semi-disturbed, or grows in areas that are semi-disturbed. And it does have a very fern-like appearance. But you can see for the bat-eared foxes, it is providing great cover for these little animals. We'll have porcupine that feed on it, unearthing that, digging it up, and unearthing the very extensive tuber or root-like bulb that this plant would use to store nutrients in for the unfavorable periods of the year. And then when summer approaches, lots and lots of leaves, basically making a lot of energy, making a lot of food, and storing into those roots, and then growing some more. It's a very, very interconnected system. So the plants that are in the picture there, in that central part of the picture, more than likely all those plants are interconnected via this extensive tuber or root-like structure. Remarkable tree, plant shrub. It's not a tree because it doesn't have a rootstock or trunk. Parents must be very close. Okay. So what we're going to do is I think we're going to leave them over there. Oh, they're just coming out a bit. Sorry, Craig. Sorry, man. There it is. Oh. And down it goes. So finding a shady spot like this and resting is a very important thing for an animal. You need to be very careful on when you are operating. You don't want to be exerting and expending unnecessary energy. So where you can find a spot during the day just like this to hunker down and relax, conserve energy, you do that. Because when it does come to the period that you have to feed, you want to be on your best game. We're going to leave these beautiful foxes. We're going to send you off to Phinda for a short while, and we're going to continue looking for those wild dogs. And we'll see you when you get back this side.
Welcome back to Ambion Phinda. 10 of the 11 giraffes have all come past the vehicle, leaving just one of them, which hopefully will come by rather close. Oh, sorry, Glenn, this roller's just caught something. Sorry, everybody, we're just going to pan across quickly. There's a European roller in the tree in front of us, and it's just caught something. It's busy bashing it against the tree. Oh, it's a dung beetle. It's caught a dung beetle. No ways. It's a big copper dung beetle, and he's going to start. Look at how he's juggling it in his beak, trying to get it lined up. That can't be the easiest thing to swallow. It's like trying to swallow a big, crunchy, I don't know, I don't know what it's like, but it's a big, solid object full of spikes. Trying to tenderize it. Maybe break up some of the exoskeleton of the dung beetle. Get the legs to be a bit more streamlined to try and swallow it down. He's having a tough time of it. There you go, he's going for it. Well done. Also imagine him burping when he did that. I don't know why. First thing that came to my mind. But he got it down. And that's surely a good meal for that European roller. That was a big, big, big dung beetle that it caught. Wow. With all these giraffes that have been coming past.
Where are they coming from? What is on the road in front of us? Is there another one?
There's a... Oh yeah, well spotted, Glenn. So I was just about to say, with all the giraffe that are in this area, and the two rhinos here as well, there's inevitably going to be some dung that's around. So
There's a beetle on it.
yeah, there's actually a pair. There's a male and female there that have got a ball of dung that they've rolled together, some fresh giraffe dung that they've managed to pat into a ball, and it looks like they're about to start rolling it. The fact that there's two on there together, indicative of the fact that it's, the two of them together and they're not fighting over it. Indicative of it being a male and female. And they'll roll that ball away together and go and dig it down into the soil somewhere. There's also, I don't know, Glenn, if you can just pan, I don't know if it's too close for us, if you pan down the road towards us, there's a bright green dung beetle also there. It's rolling a tiny little ball. towards us. I can just see the ball now. I can't see the beetle, but every now and then it'll stand up on that ball just to reorientate itself. You got it there, well done. So I see that little ball that's rolling towards us. I'm just waiting for it to stand up. Every now and then it's going to stand up on that ball and just reorientate itself to see where it's going. And then we should be able to get a good look at it. It's called a small green dung beetle. And as the name implies, it's quite small and it's the most brilliant emerald color. I'm just hoping that it does. Look, there's a copper dung beetle flying over it. There we go, you can just make it out there. I don't know if you guys can see the colors though on it. There we go, coming onto the ball and doing a little look around, making sure that it's still going the right way. Look at that. How pretty is that? Shame, that ball doesn't look very round. It looks like it's got a big flat underside. No doubt making it very difficult for this little beetle to roll it. And it looks like it's trying to roll it up the hill now, up the verge into the middle, the middle lane of the road here in front of us. Shame, poor thing. He's going to have a really tough time getting that ball up that hill with it being so oddly shaped. But that is its own fault for not taking more time to get that ball perfectly round. It seems like the pair of dung beetles in the giraffe dung, they're actually adding onto it. They are making that ball bigger and bigger, as one would expect if it's a pair of them like that. No doubt making a brood ball to go and lay an egg in. And typically those balls will be a bit bigger than if they're just going to go and hide it away or bury it somewhere to feed later, or feed on it. But yeah, they're taking a bit more time and making sure that it's a bit more round, a bit easier to push. That was awesome, and it all started with that roller. We just saw that roller catch that dung beetle. Meanwhile, though, it appears the two rhinos have started to come up the hill a bit towards us. That same mother and her youngster, the youngster stood up, and it actually started to graze first. But while we wait for these rhinos to come out into the open a bit more so you can see them a bit better, let's go across to Djuma, to Tristan and Steve. They're on the dam cam apparently.
Good afternoon and welcome everybody to Djuma, to the dam cam feed where, well, we've got a couple of hippos submerged under the water. My name is Steve and I'm joined once again with my co-host and commentator this afternoon, Tristan. Tristan,
yes,
how are you doing?
Good afternoon, everybody. Hello, Stephen.
How are you doing?
Oh, wonderful. It's been another wet day.
Been a very wet day. It's been a very wet day. The dam cam's not giving it away, but we've had some technical issues, everybody. Marcel's been racing around trying to sort out our radio comms. Marcel is our technical wizard, and he's just sent us some footage of where he's been, and everything is underwater, and yeah, it's been a very, very wet and rainy day here in Djuma, but I suppose it's welcome. We're enjoying the wet weather.
Yeah, indeed. It's always nice to see changes from droughts to flooding, and obviously it's not so nice for people that have been displaced by it, but
No.
But here in the reserve, it's always fascinating to see in complete contrast to what we were seeing, 3-4 summers ago. So
Indeed. I mean, that was just before I started here. We'd come through that huge drought. You guys have all been talking about the buffalo and the lions, and I know Jamie and Brent used to work here, and there were some really interesting stories about the Nkuhuma pride and all the white muscle disease.
for sure, yeah, it brought about a whole bunch of things. There was not just the white muscle disease. There was, the mange and the sticks, which was quite heavy.
I think I caught the end of that.
Yeah, I think they kind of had it for much longer than we thought they would. Normally mange thrives, as you know, in dry periods, but it rained and they still kind of had it for a number of years afterwards, but it was very bad during the drought. So, the contrast of that to what we're seeing now, I mean, even with the sort of picture that we have at the moment, that is not, this time 2 years ago, that dam was empty. there was no water where you're looking right now. So it's a massive change, and like I say, flooding is always an interesting thing. It's amazing to watch the power of water and the damage that does in its own little way. It's often not a slow thing, but it does damage, and it does it pretty efficiently. I was watching actually yesterday afternoon when I was down with the lions near the dam. We actually had the sort of overflow going, and I was watching the bank just crumbling as the water was going. It's amazing actually how quickly it erodes away at banks and things like that.
The power of water, it is an incredible thing. It's blessings to have it, but an overload of water sometimes can be very tragic, as the news all over the place is talking about the tropical storms and the displacement of people. And I discussed yesterday, and I think all of us can just send some thoughts and prayers out to those displaced by these storms across sort of the eastern parts of southern Africa, and just hope that everything resolves itself soon and people can get food and can stay dry and can stay safe.
For sure, I agree. But talking about kind of storms and things, often, birds and things can get lost, and Gabby's asking if we ever get lost. Gabby, difficult to get lost on the dam cam. Generally, we can zoom it around. Sometimes you feel like you're in a bit of a whirlwind when you're zooming this camera about. But generally, Steve and I have a handle of where we are on dam cam. So no, not hard to get lost when we are sitting in FC. Don't really have far to go in order to find ourselves again. But in terms of on normal drives, no. We know this property
it's
very
been a while
well.
since I got lost.
Exactly.
I think the important term is to say temporarily disorientated.
Exactly. Although, I have seen people get lost. I have a funny story about getting lost.
Okay. Where was this?
When I was at Lion Sands, I'm pretty much sure I've told.
And that's in the southwestern
southern side of the Sabi Sands. Who, they're really seeing flooding. The Sabi River is huge at the moment. But I'd just gotten there. I think it was like my third night of driving. And, normally when you go to a lodge, you have kind of an orientation period where you get to learn the roads a little bit.
Normally a few weeks at least.
So I got given a map, and I was like, right, you can learn the roads. I was out learning roads my first day. I get a call, and one of the guys not feeling well, you're on drive already this afternoon. So
a bit of a deep end throw.
End thrown, all good, here we go, no problem. Because you have a tracker, and trackers are gentlemen that sit at the front, generally very experienced individuals. They sit on the front of the car, and as younger guides or new guides to an area are hugely beneficial because they help you being able to direct you and show you where to go. So anyway, we go on this game drive, we drive, and there's these male lions. So we go into the block and find the male lions, decide to leave now. It's at night and it's cloudy. So we drive off, and my tracker's directing me, right, left, straight, right, left. And I'm thinking...
You know better though, eh?
I'm thinking in my mind, I'm like, this is a lot longer than it took to get in here. But I'm like, you know what, maybe I'm wrong, maybe this guy's just sending us to the right road, And anyway, we drive, and all of a sudden, he exclaims lions. So I'm thinking we've bumped into more lions. As I look though, it's the exact same 3 male lions, and I'm just like, no, this has not gone well. Then that sinking feeling that you have no idea actually where you are.
I know that feeling.
But eventually we got out about an hour and a half later. It was not ideal.
Okay, well, we will be touching on more interesting stories, so please do keep your questions coming through to #WildEarth and throw them in the YouTube chat stream. But in the meantime, we're going to send you over to, I'm not sure who that was, but someone I'm sure has got some wonderful animals.
Alrighty, so here we go. Brilliant question was asked earlier. What intrigues me about the bush? Constantly learning every day. We came around the corner, and I just got off on foot to see if we can locate these beautiful wild dogs. And what do I walk into? This big, beautiful snake. We have got a Cape Cobra inside this blackthorn. And it just shows you, the knowledge that we have on Cape Cobras is obviously very limited. Although it being the most widely distributed, one of the most widely distributed snakes in South Africa, I would have thought the snake would have booked it one way. What did it do? Turned around and then up into this tree. But look how beautiful and rich that color is. I was not expecting at finding a snake today, folks. It is a Cape Cobra. We can see from the scales, the way that the scales are how they fit into one another, and then as well as the rich color. If you look at the color morphs within this area, we have a few different color morphs of this beautiful and very, very, very dangerous snake. And then as well as if we are lucky enough to get a little peek on its head is obviously very distinctive. And it is just feeling a little safer inside this tree than it would be on the ground. It is quite a large individual. It looks about, I would say about a meter, about a meter, maybe a little bit more. And a really beautiful color. So if I stand dead still here next to this tree, this snake does not know that I'm here. Obviously, respect is number one, and then just remaining cautious all the time is very, very important, because you don't want to be bitten by this snake. Being front fixed-fanged possesses a neurotoxic venom, which will obviously affect all bodily functions of myself. It had to bite me. It would not be a nice thing. You'd need to be rushed to hospital fairly quickly. But it going up that tree, it almost effortless, almost like it was in water, just liquid, moving into this blackthorn. And obviously the scales, being a very, very important protective layer, these very vicious thorns, thorns that is on this tree, will not hurt the snake. Scales are very, very protective, armored surface that reptiles have, and also where and how they lock moisture into the body as well. He's just remaining absolutely still. He did do a bit of movement before we got with you guys. Colleen, we can find them in a brown form. We can find them in speckled form. We can find them in jet black. We can find them in like a light pale yellowy color. And then as well as this beautiful, rich, almost like orange, rich brown orange type scheme. And we are trying to understand what it is. What is the triggering factor that gives these snakes their color? Is it, a certain gene that is passed on from parents, from male and female individuals? Or is it something at random? Food? Is it the available cover that it has? Is it temperature? We are still trying to understand that beautiful question. What gives these snakes their color scheme? Because if you look at Tswali exhibits quite a wide range of these color morphs, and it makes a really entertaining point of view when you keep on seeing these snakes, and they're different every single time. But also when it comes to photography, you can have some striking contrast between the environment and then as well as the subject being the beautiful snake. And then always just making sure that you are very careful around it, and you don't want to be disturbing it as well. Like rodents, frogs, birds, other snakes, they do practice cannibalism, so they will eat other cobras and other snakes, and obviously using that very, very volatile neurotoxic venom to obviously put their prey in its tracks. Diona, would there be more snakes out and about due to the rain? So if you look at the past few days, we've had full sun. And if you think about this beautiful animal, and people always ask that question, when you get on the safari vehicle and we're out and about, where are all the snakes? And it is, because you do see documentaries and you do see a lot of footage of snakes all the time. But then snakes have to be very careful. Not only from a predatory point of view, because there's a lot of things that'll feed on them. You get very specialized birds like the snake eagle that almost solely predate on snakes. They do feed on other things. You would have things like the secretary bird, one of the most unique ways on how a bird would kill a snake, by stomping on it. Very, very powerful legs. So they need to watch out for predators, but then they have no way of regulating their internal core temperature, being ectothermic organisms. So when it is blistering hot, these snakes are hiding. they're in a nice, cool, shady spot where obviously their body is absorbing their body is just absorbing the surrounding heat, their required heat. And if they're exposed in the sun for an extended period of time, they'll die. So, and now that we have this beautiful overcast afternoon, this is now when the snake now has become a bit more active. They need to be very careful, at where and when they operate. And so these overcast conditions allowed us to view this beautiful reptile. This is by far one of the most medically important snakes that we have here at Tswalu, along with the boomslang, but that's a totally different venom category. Venom is injected and poison is ingested. So venom, obviously once it injects you, it's into the bloodstream, and then depending on the properties within this venom, they will then affect the body in different ways. So some affect the nervous system, some affect the bite site itself, and then others affect the blood. And if they have no venom, then they're obviously using other methods or forms of killing prey. That would be by squeezing very, very tight constrictors, like our beautiful African rock python, which is one of the largest snakes that we have. Biting down, and obviously they've got serrated backward-facing teeth, and many of them, and then constricting on their prey. We're going to leave this beautiful snake, and I'm going to take a little walk a bit further south. We are very, very lucky that we could see it just like this. But we're going to send you off, and we'll see you shortly.
As you can see, it's a very, very full dam, and how amazing are those Cape Cobras? The coloration of them is unbelievable, isn't it, Stephen?
Yeah, no, I heard Carl talking about all the different colours. I've only ever seen one of this sort of ilk.
Is it? Yeah, I've seen this one like this, and I've seen those speckled ones with the black markings on them. But yeah, the proper black ones I haven't seen before.
I was actually digging in my garden in a sand dune in the Southern Cape.
Yeah.
In Wilderness. Island Lake. I was building a garden there, and it was an old sand dune building, and I was digging, and I pulled out a tree, a small bush that obviously had some nice roots down underneath, and I saw this long golden thread underneath the soil, and there's nothing else it could have been. I had to move away for a few minutes. I didn't see it again.
I thought you were going to say that you actually picked up the thread as a small...
No. It was in 2013.
Oh, okay, so you, you're adult by this stage. So
I had an idea of what was going on.
You had some wits about you.
But I saw that thing, and it was moving, and obviously it had burrowed itself in the dune, but it was probably looking for mole rats or Cape Dune mole rats.
It wasn't a blind snake, definitely a cobra.
It was that colour, I don't know. I saw a pipe-like thing moving through the ground.
Did you get that
colour? No idea what it could have been.
Schlegel's blind snake, sometimes. Yeah, very thick, very fat.
Really?
A little bit of black blotches on it, or not?
No, it looked like that fellow in the tree right there.
I don't know. They do go into holes in the ground. So
I just saw a bit of its body. It could have been
anything else.
Could have been some old building material that was moving.
And that you didn't grab it, because that would have been awkward.
And it ended up being quite a prosperous little veggie garden for a time.
Was it? That's very cool. But we're having a look, just a kind of wide shot of the dam, so you guys can see just how much this has filled up over the course of the last...
It looked pretty much like that yesterday because of the overflow. Yeah, this little pan in front is obviously filled up now.
But this little pan here in the front is absolutely amazing how much water is in there. That was almost dry yesterday morning when we started on the dam camp. And there's the hippos busy chatting as well. All right, well, we'll carry on the dam camp. We're going to try to find some little gems. We'll hopefully find the jacana that's apparently there somewhere.
Welcome back to Beyond Phinda. We were speaking earlier about white rhinos and how often mothers with calves kind of group together around resources. And I mentioned earlier that this patch that we came here because of how lush the grass has been growing here in the last few days. And wouldn't you know it, that mother and her calf that we saw earlier, I said that we'd seen a couple, or at least one other rhino in the area. There's now 7 white rhinos down there in that thicket. They're very tough to see because of how dense the bush is. But there's a mother and her calf, the original mother and the calf that we saw earlier. Then a second mother and calf arrived. And then a mother with her calf and a satellite calf arrived. So 7 white rhinos all together that are all busy grazing under those thorn bushes over there. And it was the most precious thing. I've never seen this before. When the first two couples kind of first realized or recognized that each other were there, so to speak, the 2 females ignored each other, but the 2 calves came walking up to each other with their noses out and their ears pricked forward, listening to each other, smelling each other, and they started to almost like bump noses and rub their heads against each other. It was the most precious thing. It was absolutely adorable. But yeah, they're now in the bushes there, and then of course to the right, it's those same 2 giraffes from earlier that have started their sparring again. It's getting very graceful, almost like swans with their necks getting intertwined there. Ooh, I don't know if you can hear that. There's a bit of an interaction between the rhinos down there. I wonder if a calf didn't go up to the wrong cow and it got a bit of a reprimanding in the form of a huffing sound that the rhino cow was making, like a sound. And the 2 giraffes swinging their heads against each other, or swinging their heads at each other again. Interesting, these 2 have spent very little time feeding in all the time that we've been here, whereas the other giraffes have all been feeding quite a lot. These 2 perhaps have already taken in enough to eat for the day, and they can spend the rest of the time practicing their fighting skills, their fight moves. Oh, they're taking the fight outside the thorn bushes. They need more space. And see how they right up against each other, bumping shoulders. The one trying to throw the other off balance. Oh, look at that baby rhino, it's following the giraffe. No ways. Look at that. It came right up to the... Look, it's chasing, it's chasing the giraffe. No ways. And it's so pleased. It's so pleased with itself. It was the cutest thing, everybody. I've never seen that before. That was hysterical. We were just talking earlier about rhinos and how when it's windy they can be very like nervous and twitchy and skittish. But that little calf was so confident. It went marching straight up to those giraffes. Just chased them away. I think the one was just ignoring it for a bit, but the darker one got a bit of a fright. He got a bit disconcerted by this young rhino that was following him. But back to their game, trying to throw each other off balance. Rosalind, you're asking if giraffes ever get sore necks. Rosalind, I suppose if they hurt themselves, they could get a sore neck. I think their bodies are designed and their musculature is designed such that they can do what they have to do with their neck. They can swing their necks at each other like this, and they can feed. They lie down resting with their heads up most of the time. So yeah, their necks are evolved and adapted for doing that, and they've throughout their lives they constantly are doing things, exercising those muscles to make them stronger and make them more used to their functions. So these kind of sparring match their necks ready for more intense, more severe fights later on in life. Strengthening those muscles and developing that muscle memory, developing that strength to really swing their heads hard at each other. But Rosalind, I suppose they would get a sore neck, obviously, if they hurt themselves. I've seen giraffes with pretty bad scars on their necks from where they've presumably run into a tree or a stump or a stick or something, maybe whilst trying to flee from a lion or from a disturbance. I mean, we spoke about how they've evolved to become bigger over the millions of years from when they left the more tropical forests of Africa, and as the savannah started to expand, as they moved out of that and out of the forest and into the savannah, they grew bigger. I suppose, yeah, they would have, like I said, evolved and adapted to make those necks strong. It looked like they started to feed briefly there, but again, they definitely much more interested in sparring with each other. A shame that one on the left almost looks like it's starting to get a bit wobbly. There you go, now they're starting to feed again. But still, they're touching each other, like their necks are touching. Every now and then their horns touch. It's quite typical of male giraffes to come into close contact quite a lot, especially with these sparring matches. Often moving around in groups, they bump into each other and scratch their necks against each other's necks. But the one on the left looks like he's had enough of this. He looks like he's trying to reel away from his friend. Megan, you were saying it's so interesting to see the color differences between these two giraffes. Absolutely, Megan. And Glenn and I were just chatting about it now, how within that group of 11 that came past us, there were some, like we said, they were like almost like a dark chocolatey color, some more like a milk chocolate, one or two more of a caramel color. Like this one on the right, it's almost like a combination of a caramel with a bit of grey. There's two rhinos coming towards the giraffe from the left, everybody. Or three rhinos make that. I think it's the mother with the calf and the satellite calf. You might just get a glimpse of them. Oh no, it's a whole bunch of them. There's at least 4 rhinos there. But they're still just concealed behind the bushes. And they're making their way back towards the giraffe, so let's see. I just want that calf to come and do that again. Imagine if you... Oh, I don't want to preempt anything, but it would be very funny if that calf came and did his little investigation again of the giraffe. But I think his curiosity has maybe been satisfied now. But yes, Megan, you're absolutely right. It's wonderful to see the color variations of the giraffes. And even the actual pattern of their spots. We see with the various subspecies or species of giraffe across Africa, how they all have slightly different coats and slightly different patterning. Like with the Maasai giraffe, how their spots almost look like a whole bunch of maple leaves stuck together, very jagged spots. Whereas a lot of the South African giraffes, the subspecies of giraffe or species depending on who you ask, that we're looking at now, the edge is a bit kind of smoother. To me, their pattern looks like a dried up pool of water where the mud at the bottom has cracked, formed those shapes. There's another rhino that's about to come out from the left, everyone. And this one looks like it's a little bit further up the hill, so we might actually get a glimpse. Oh, there's a calf there as well. There's 2 rhinos. A little bit further up the hill, so not as well concealed in the bushes. Sure, there's a whole bunch of them. The rhinos now all surrounding these giraffes. Craig, you're asking why giraffes have a black tip to their tail. Craig, so that black tip or that long black stream or that long black segment, is the long hairs on the end of their tail. And those hairs are very long and very wiry, and they're used by the giraffe to help it to get rid of flies. So I'm sure if we sit and watch long enough, that one that's closest to us is defecating now. So it might take him a second or two before he does it again. There we go. That's exactly what we're waiting for. Did you see that movement there, Craig? How the giraffe kind of flicked its tail across and swatted at its shoulder. And we often speak about how long a giraffe's neck is and how long its legs are. And those are the features that we talk about most often with giraffe, and the kind of the most iconic features of the giraffe. But we very seldom make reference to that tail. Look at how long that tail is, especially the hairs. I mean, at least a third of the entire length of that tail, just looking at it with my own eyes from here, looks like it must be made up of those hairs. And it's super, super long. And when you watch, look, the rhino calf is coming to investigate. It's pushing the giraffes away. It's not the calf, actually, no, it's the mother. The mother is just feeding her way through the bush. And the giraffe obviously got a fright from the last time that happened, that little calf that drove them away, and they saw, oh, no, there's a bigger rhino coming through, we're not going to stick around. Yo, there's a lot of rhino activity going on at the back there. Youngsters chasing each other around. Maybe just a bit energized after the fresh rain that we've had, the lovely fresh rain. There's not so much dust anymore, the heat is gone. Oh, it's been so hot here for the last few days, everybody. Temperatures, at least real feel, getting well above 40 Celsius or well above 100 Fahrenheit real feel, and hot, dry wind, and just super intense sunlight. It's been humid. And then yesterday and today just brought the ultimate respite with all this rain. And it's now nice and cool. So maybe these young rhinos are just feeling energized and sprightly. In the mood to play. There's plenty of food. The grass is all lush and green. Super nutritious. You're asking quite an interesting question. You're asking which animal would cause more damage to the other. I presume you're asking if a rhino could hurt a giraffe more than a giraffe could hurt a rhino. That's a very interesting question. I don't think I've ever heard of an incident where either species has actively and aggressively attacked the other. But if I had to imagine, obviously a giraffe with those long legs and those very big hooves, they can deliver quite a powerful kick. Or rather a very powerful kick. But these rhinos, they're so big and compact, and even though a giraffe is obviously very tall and very lanky, one of these adult female white rhinos probably weighs more than either of these two young male giraffes here. So she's got the advantage of a lot of weight, a lot of strength on her side. And I think if she wanted to, and if she got the opportunity to, she could easily trip that giraffe up. But yeah, this is all hypothetical situations. Neither species would have cause to do this to the other. Obviously, giraffes not being... Obviously, they're different species, so from a territoriality point of view, they won't be trying to defend a territory against the other. And giraffes are not territorial, and neither are female white rhinos, at least. So from that point of view, there's no reason to behave aggressively towards each other. And also from a food resource point of view, I mean, with giraffes with those long necks, specialized to feed on the tops of the, or just on leaves in general. And then the white rhino with that massive head, and all of those molar teeth in their mouth, that big square lip for cropping up grass. They both feed on completely different things, so neither species would have any reason to behave aggressively towards the other. That little rhino going to investigate the giraffe, I think, is one of the funniest things that I've seen in a long time. Glenn and I are going to stick around here for a bit longer, just because it's just unreal here. There's so many rhinos, so many giraffes in this area. But while we wait to see what develops here, let's go back to Djuma. Let's go see what Steve and Tristan are up to on the dam cam.
Welcome back to the Dam Cam, everybody, where I've got the mic at the moment, currently. And Tristan, with his amazing eyes, has managed to track down the African jacana.
Yeah, we have. It was actually not a bad spot. I was quite impressed.
Yeah.
Steve was on zooming duty and then he gave up and said, no, I must do it. But we managed to, as we were panning along, see this little white head that you can see milling about. And it looks like the bird is currently trying to build a nest, funny enough. We saw it harvesting all kinds of little bits of vegetation. They like to build little floating nests where they'll then lay their eggs. The problem is that I don't see a second jacana, so it's going to be awkward if you build a nest, but no.
He's got to build the nest first, and then that will attract the lady, won't it?
Will it? Imagine if she... Marcel's also here, just by the way, if you hear a peanut gallery in the background.
Marcel has survived the rains outside. He's arrived back.
He has survived the rain, but it'll be a bit awkward. Imagine building a nest and there's another one doesn't arrive. I mean, I can't see if it's a male or female. The females are much larger than the males, and that's to do with the fact that they, lay their eggs and will do so repeatedly through the season. It's not just a once-off laying that they do in the summer season. Quite a few, but they actually don't play any part in raising of the chicks at all, and that's because they're too heavy. So the chicks need to move around on light vegetation in order to be able to survive. They can't kind of be out in the open on very big, heavy lily pads, and they're often on little small ones. And if the mother bird is with them, she sinks on those little lily pads, whereas the male, being much lighter, can move around with the chicks. And
it's one of the cutest things to see, isn't it? We were talking about it just before, where the male gets a fright, he makes a noise, and then all the chicks come and he just scoops them underneath the armpits. You see these little pairs of long feet hanging down the side as he takes off along the lily pads in search of a safe place.
I was in Chobe this time last year, so for those of you who don't know where Chobe is in the northern part of Botswana. It's a river that runs along the edge of Namibia and Botswana. And they were everywhere with their little chicks like that. I mean, we had countless sightings of these little ones kind of being scooped up underneath the wings and little feet sticking out. I mean, they're not little feet either. It's like Marcel's feet. Size 17s.
But he says his are normal.
His are normal.
Perfectly average, apparently.
So I heard you say you were tracking Bigfoot around camp.
I was.
Marcel was wearing no shoes. Steve was very intrigued. He thought he had found Bigfoot finally. We were going to get all of the Bigfoot nation out into the Sabi Sands coming to search for Bigfoot. But alas, it was just trapped to Marcel's room, and Marcel was sitting with his feet up on his bed. Anyway.
But it's not the first time I'm seeing jacana at this dam. We saw one last year.
Yeah, we have seen them.
Not a breeding pair. Just one fellow. I don't know if you followed it longer. I only saw it for a brief period.
No, I didn't follow. I honestly didn't see the jacana last year, but I have seen them quite a lot in the sands. I mean, they're uncommon.
Below Chitwa, down below the wall there, exactly. I saw a few.
Anywhere where you get floating vegetation, they thrive. That's where they like to be. They move around, and the reason why they have such big feet, unlike with Marcel, is that these guys have big feet to distribute their weight. These feet are
you can actually see him easily just walking over the lily pads there.
You can see how long the toes are, maybe. I mean, some of you might not be able to make it out, but unfortunately we can't go much closer because the camera then starts to lose quality. But those long toes, essentially what it's doing is it's distributing its weight over a much larger surface area.
Like snowshoes. Snowshoes, yeah.
Like snowshoes there, Stephen. Look at you putting out all the great...
Because it's snowing all over, many places in the north at the moment, isn't it?
It's cold everywhere.
Blessings to that.
Amanda, you're asking if it's part of the overflow from the dam. No, it's not overflow from the dam, it's the inflow from the dam. So if I just zoom us out quickly and turn to the left, you'll see when we zoom back in slightly, if you look on the top sort of left of where the water is, you can actually see the bubbles coming in. So this is the flow coming in from Gallego side, the Gallego drainage lines. They're all flowing in to the dam at the moment. So this is the inflow. Now normally this is all, before the rains was actually just grassy. It was the edge of the dam. But it's flooded up now, and all the grass is, of course, this little flooded section, which is the perfect place for a jacana. You also might be hearing a very odd sound, a sort of a whirring sound. I don't know how else to describe it.
Churring, whirring.
Kind of sound. Exactly, yes. And that is a banded rubber frog, everybody, that is making that noise. We can maybe try and find them. It sounds like it's very close. There's a woodland kingfisher flying away. It probably is sitting over here on a log in these pans. Banded rubber frogs often are on these little kind of logs, or as Steve says, or on the surrounding vegetation. And given how clear the sound is, I would imagine it's somewhere in this little section here. So there will be a lot of frogs this evening. Actually, the calls might be quite nice come sort of sunset period.
I know many people like to sleep with this audio on at home. Nice time of year for doing that.
They do indeed. I'm going to just keep it here, so if I can pick up the audio again, because it's a directional mic, it often helps us being able to figure out where it is. I know some of you were saying there was some commotion sounds on the dam cam. We didn't hear them, but we'll try and kind of zoom around and see what we can find.
Meantime, we're going to send you over to Damon once again with his giraffe.
Welcome back to Ambient Panda. The white rhinos, all 7 of them, have moved off back down into the bottom of the valley, leaving just the 2 giraffes that are still, will have at least been busily sparring. But it seems like they've slowed down again. Their appetite or their hunger has obviously brought on a bit of a change of heart, and they've stopped with their play fighting for now, starting to feed again. Oh, never mind. That one was on the other side. That looked like he was feeding, and then he just swung his head around and hit his companion. And it was even like an over his back shot. Swung his head and managed to connect onto the neck of his companion with those horns. What are you doing? Look at him. He's bending that neck all the way backwards and rubbing the tops of his horns on the other giraffe's neck. Let's see what happens here. There might be a little swing from the far giraffe. He's pushing him. Did you see that? They're like fronds of kelp swaying in the current. But it's that one on the left. He keeps leaning into the other one and pushing him. But it's changed now. Remember earlier it was the lighter one that was harassing the darker one, and now it's the darker one harassing the lighter one. I suppose adolescent humans are not much different. Boys will be boys. Always poking fun at each other. And they're busy feeding on what looks like from here a bushveld saffron. Tando, you're asking how a male giraffe will attract a female to mate. Well, Tando, what will happen is that a giraffe will, so a big male in his prime, big muscular neck, big kind of bony growths on top of his head, big thick horns, and often a very dark body. He'll come and investigate a group of females, and he'll smell their urine and smell around their genitals. And if he detects the presence of pheromones in her urine that indicate that she's coming into estrus, that she's getting ready to mate, he will stick with her. And he'll stick tight to her, and every move she makes, he'll basically mirror her. Well, it depends, I suppose, on how close to coming into estrus she is. So if she's close, or he'll stick with her until she's ready to mate. But the closer she gets, the more closely he will shadow her, until when it's right at the time, he's literally got his chest to her rear end, and he won't move from that position. If she shifts forward a meter, he'll shift forward a meter. If she pivots 45 degrees to the right, he'll pivot 45 degrees to the right, always keeping his sternum perfectly aligned with her spine, so to speak. And this could go on for hours. I remember last year we actually watched a male and female for 3 hours. We sat with these giraffes, and the male had obviously decided that she was almost there, and he was willing to stick it out and wait there until she was ready. And that's, I suppose, to answer your question, how he'll attract his mate, is that he'll show to her his physical fitness, his ability to follow her and stick with her, show his perseverance and his persistence. And that long courtship, of course, leaves the opportunity for other males to come in and challenge the current male. And if he's able to fight the other males off, he then proves himself to be the fittest, the strongest male, and the one most desirable to mate with. The fact that he can stick with her for that long, maybe not feed as much as he would normally do, means that his body is in a good enough condition. He's strong enough that he can sacrifice a few hours of feeding, or maybe more than a few hours of feeding, to devote to the courtship. And those are all things that, to a female giraffe, will prove that he's the right male to mate with. Oh, do you see that? That was a good one. Look at them still jostling. Shame, that darker giraffe is now getting harassed again. And just looking at them from here, he seems to be the slightly more slender of the two. He looks to be a little bit smaller, a little bit younger. His neck is not as thick. Maybe why he's getting bullied a bit more. But this is all part of growing up for a male giraffe. And all of these bouts of play fighting will stand him in good stead later on in life. I don't know if you can hear in the background, everybody. Obviously, with the rain that's been falling so much, there's a lot of puddles and pools that have started to form in places all over the bush, all around us. And I'm going to keep quiet for a second because I want you to listen to all the frogs that are calling around us. So there's quite a few different species calling. As a young rhino comes out to investigate, stand by everybody, get ready in case that young rhino comes to see what's going on again. So there's one going meep, 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 meep. And that's a broad-banded grass frog that's calling. Then there's a very deep booming sound that I keep thinking it's a dog barking. I keep turning around to see where is this dog that's barking. But it's a bullfrog. It's an African bullfrog that's calling. And then every now and then there's a high-pitched from a very pretty frog called a banded rubber frog. Black with red kind of mottles and stripes all over it. And all these frogs with the rain have just suddenly started calling and started to get active, taking advantage of the pools of water to breed. Ooh. Can you hear those thuds, everybody? The thuds of the giraffe horns as they... Oh, geez, they're really getting a bit rough now. Look at how that one on the left is pushing the one on the right, using his body weight to try and push him, throw him off balance. But it's been absolutely wonderful spending so much time with these giraffes. And even though we haven't had the best views of these white rhinos, just to see the behavior amongst the youngsters has been so special. I think the rhinos have moved off quite a bit, and these giraffe two also, at least the rest of the group has moved off, and I wouldn't be surprised if these two also head off in a little bit. Glenn and I are going to leave the scene for now, and we're going to head off and see if we can't find maybe some buffalo feeding on the hillside on the other side of this ravine.
My name is Moritz, and I come to you live every day from Tswalu Kalahari here in South Africa. My favorite thing is probably the predators. And as you can see, we're looking at some of them right now. These are the kings of the Kalahari. Spending time with the cats, it's just a privilege. And I love their behavior, you know, the more that you look at them, just the power and the sheer beauty and elegance of them.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth. For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient Kortai's Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and of course meet the meerkat. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply.
We have a baby pangolin. A baby pangolin. This is off the charts. This animal is about from your fingertips to your elbow. That's the total length of this animal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is unreal. This is like now my 4th Christmas in a week. We should do this more often.
Tune into Wild Earth every single day. It's in your nature.
My name is Ross and I'm a field guide at and Beyond Pinde Private Game Reserve. I love getting questions from guests on Wild Earth because I love sharing and learning information about nature with new people, and it also makes me feel like you're all joining me in real life. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, go to our live safari page and submit your question below our live feed.
All that worked. Craig gave this bird a stern talking to and said, "You will not fly." There was... Okay. Maybe it felt a little bit uneasy. Let's take a look at the springbok there. Oh my word. That was an ant-eating chat in the tree that just flew off there. Very beautiful bird. In the background you can hear all the wattled starlings busy chirping away. Springbok just taking it easy in the grassy plains. Sitting down and doing some ruminating. Ruminating. Very thick and stocky horns of the one on the left gives us an indication that is a ram. And then the very thin structure of the one on the right looks to be a female. Absolutely beautiful antelope. We have located on the wild dogs, ladies and gentlemen, but unfortunately they are sitting in a very tricky position. They are sitting directly in front of the lodge at the waterhole at Motse Lodge. Motse is one of 2 lodges that Tswalu has. It's Motse Lodge in Tarkuni, which is about 15 kilometers south of us. Both very beautiful lodges, and the way they sit, they're just nestled in amongst all this vegetation, so you would not even see the lodge if you didn't know where it was. But unfortunately we can't go in front there now because there is guests currently in camp. So what we are doing is sitting on the western side here, and hopefully they move off. Tammy, good afternoon. What a great question Tammy asked there. What is the difference between a springbok and an impala? People do tend to mix them up quite a lot in the beginning because there is so many antelope species in Africa. In Africa there's an estimated, I think, of 75 different antelope species, and it can become very confusing in the beginning. But if we take a look at this antelope in picture now, you're going to see its beautiful white face, and then the shape of the horns where they go up, they bend out, and then they curl in. And then if you look at the one on the right-hand side, the left-hand side, sorry, you can see that very dark stripe on the side of the belly. That dark stripe is also a defining characteristic of a springbok. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to find an impala. I'm quickly going to call one out. Watch this. Let's give it a few seconds. It's going to come out. Now it takes a little bit of time. They're a bit shy in the beginning, but they eventually do come out. It's got to whistle properly as well. I can hear it. So that white coloration of that antelope over there is a very, very, very distinctive characteristic. Okay, there it comes. There's the impala. Yeah, they are here. All right. So looking at an impala, look at the difference over here. For springbuck, both male and female have horns. For impala, only the males, the rams, have horns. And look at that horn structure. Look how different it is. It's got a uniform, nice tan brown coloration, dark dorsal section, a little bit lighter. Let me go up to this one over here. This is a female busy stotting away. Look at that coloration over there of that antelope. So dark dorsal section and then a white belly. No dark stripe on the side of the body. So you can see those characteristics are very, very easy to remember. So dark stripe running parallel or alongside the belly, and then obviously that white facial marking, you know you are looking at a springbuck. But if it does not have that dark line, and then obviously no white face, it is an impala. Excuse me. Great question, and it does become very tricky in the beginning. Trying to recognize all these little antelopes because they can be very confusing at times. I hope everybody enjoyed my luring out of the impala. I'll try a leopard later. So a little bit of rest time for them. We are coming on to a full moon in the next day or two. So I am in my stomach, and the time being here at Tswalu, we obviously have the luxury of learning the very nitty-gritties, the things that you normally would not read just out of your normal field guidebook or handbook. When you lead up to full moon, the African wild dogs do seize this available opportunity because under the cover of darkness you are concealed. And I've noticed at Tswalu 2 or 3 days leading up to full moon, and then 2 or 3 days after full moon, these dogs utilize this available format or platform to hunt under the cover of darkness. And so I am really, really hoping that they move off to find a comfortable spot a bit west over here. But we're going to try and sneak a little bit closer and see if we can get a glimpse for you folks. But for now, we're going to send you back off to Phinda, where they are at a watering hole.
Welcome back to Ambient Phinda, everybody. I don't know if you can hear my voice over the deafening chorus of the frog orchestra that we've found ourselves in. I'm going to keep quiet for a few minutes just to let you guys take this in. It's unbelievable. I don't even know where to begin. Excuse me, like I was saying earlier, just with the sudden downpour of rain, there's all these pools of water where there never used to be pools, and there's water holes that were dry and that are suddenly full to the brim. And so all these frogs that have been lying dormant or sitting inactive, conserving energy and moisture, have suddenly become active. There's quite a couple that are quite distinctive here. There's a very high-pitched sound. That's that banded rubber frog I spoke about earlier. There's quite a distinctive knocking, like someone knocking on the door. But it's getting swallowed up by everything else. But anyway, that's a knocking sand frog. There's quite a droning coming from behind me, and those are being made by red toads. There's been a bullfrog that's been calling from just left of us here. Although I can't... There you go, he's calling. Azana, you're saying you just love the sounds? Azana, Glenn and I wish you could see how we've got the biggest smiles on our faces. It's unbelievable. I hope that the audio that the sound is coming through as close to how we're hearing it as possible, because it's actually deafening. I can hardly hear myself talking. But there's that whoop, whoop that's coming from the bullfrog. Remember earlier I said it sounds like a dog barking in the distance. But it's definitely these banded rubber frogs that are just drowning everything else out with that sound. And there's that whip, whip, whip again of the broad-banded grass frog. There's some cacos calling a very high-pitched trilling sound. Bootka's caco calling. Jackie, you're asking if the sound will attract predators? Jackie, most definitely. There will be animals that will feed on frogs, that will hear these sounds and come to investigate. But Jackie, there's a reason that we aren't actually showing you a frog, because as hard as I'm looking, I can't see one calling. They're all so incredibly well concealed. They're all hiding in the thickets and the grasses here. And Jackie, if I were to get out right now and start walking around in the marsh, like something like maybe a mongoose or a white-tailed mongoose or a hammerkop or an animal that might feed on these frogs, you'd hear them go, they'd stop calling, they'd go quiet. That disturbance would make them go quiet, and they'd sit very still, very quietly, and wait for the threat to pass before they carry on calling again. It's interesting how they all listen. So I know there's a bit of chaos in terms of all the calling, but listen, if you listen carefully, there's almost like each frog is waiting for its perfect little moment to call, and there's like a volume, so that it makes sure that it's getting heard. You see the bullfrog, it waited for a bit of a drop, it waited for the banded rubber frogs to finish with their call, and then it called. Because each frog, of course, they're all different species, they're not competing for females, because a bullfrog's not going to try and mate with a banded rubber frog, but they all want an equal chance to be heard by their prospective mates. And so by each of them calling at just slightly in between each other, they make their calls easier to hear to prospective mates. And I'm just scanning with my binoculars, trying to see if I can't see, because a bullfrog is a pretty big frog, so we might be able to see it. No, we've already been looking for quite a while, but no sign of any frogs out in the open. What an amazing experience. I think Glenn and I are going to leave the frogs for now, though. We're going to carry on up the hill here, see if we can find a herd of buffalo. Let's go back across to Steve and Tristan at Djuma on the Dam Cam again, though.
We are on the Dam Cam just as the rain has started to pelt down once more. Surprise, surprise. We also found the lions. We found them twice before this already, but they keep disappearing. It's very far away and the grass is very long. But right in the center of that picture, just behind, there's kind of like a bush willow on the right side of the frame at the back. It's underneath that bush willow. Every now and then we just see the head popping up. You might see an ear move every now and then. I unfortunately can't go too much closer because we lose a lot of...
Wouldn't it be wonderful if the mouse that you're putting now on the screen could actually show on the viewer's screen at home so they could see where we're pointing?
I don't know why I'm doing that. I'm showing you, Stephen. This is a guided experience for Stephen. I keep moving my mouse to kind of show what I'm talking about, but no one can see it except for me.
Circling it.
And exactly.
Showing where it is.
All the things, but unfortunately not really helping anybody. But you would have heard every now and then there's a bark for a baboon. It was just as you guys came over to us, you heard it. So there we go. Well done, Stephen.
It's sort of like it's not really an alarm. It's almost like a What is it really? Because that's not what we look for normally when we look at baboon alarms.
Well, I suppose that's a young baboon, maybe alarming. Also, when it's not too serious, they like that. But I mean,
it's almost playful, isn't it?
Exactly. It's in a way that I'm safe. I know you're there. I'm not really worried. I find they go a lot more ballistic though for the leopards than they do for the lions. The lions, they shout a little bit, but they're not too kind of concerned about it. Whereas with the leopards, they go crazy.
It's almost like the young baboon saying, "I still see them there. I still see them there."
Exactly. And it's just like a reminder rather than a frenzy.
But they have been there for more than 24 hours.
They've been there for a long time. Where this picture is now is where the third wildebeest carcass was yesterday. I'll come out a bit so you guys can see. Samantha, you're asking about new birds that have flown in from the storm. Yes, there's been a couple. We haven't seen on Djuma because we haven't been out enough. Steve said he saw what he thought was some sort of a tern fly over my head last night or yesterday evening, but with the rain...
Could have been any of the terns. You said there was a list of them that have arrived.
Exactly. So with the rains that we're having, sorry, I'm just trying to scan to the right to see, because I had another line up on the right-hand side here, but that one's also disappeared. But with the kind of roof that we had on yesterday on the vehicle, we actually can't see very nicely. And so something flew over our head that Steve asked me if I saw, but I didn't.
And my dam cam visual of it, I mentioned it, there was a bird, but I wasn't sure. I wasn't without binoculars.
But to answer the question, I mean, I haven't really answered the question, but yes, there's been sooty terns, quite a few of them that have been seen through the Kruger system. So I think there's 8 or 9 different birds that are currently being seen. One at Ulusabi airstrip in the Sabi Sands, and a couple kind of spread out in the Kruger itself. And then there's a frigate bird that was on Ngala yesterday. It was just seen now. I suspect it's the same bird. Was just seen now in Hoedspruit, flying around close to the airport in Hoedspruit. There you can see the lion just moving behind the bush. I don't know if you can make it out, but there's a little bit of movement on the right-hand side of the frame behind the bush there.
And I mean, that's super interesting, isn't it? That those birds who you'd only normally see off on the islands, you'd be able to see. Where would we see them exactly? I haven't seen either of them before.
So from here, probably the closest place. I mean, you can get them on the coast of Mozambique, but generally you're looking at Bazaruto, in Yaka Island. Those would be kind of places that you would get them.
I'm looking at the distribution map here, and it shows, I mean, some vagrant listed all over the place, but definitely on the east, even on all the way over on the sort of the west coast of Namibia being spotted there, all the way down to Cape Town.
Is that the sooty tern or the?
That's the sooty. The sooty.
Right, no, the sooty tern is more of a coastal bird.
You were talking about the frigate. Yes, let's find him again.
They do get, terns and frigate birds and gulls. They often do get blown around by particularly big systems like we saw, or what we're seeing currently. So every now and then you will see one of these making landfall and quite deep into the area. But when you think about it, we're not far from Mozambique. In flying time for one of those birds, it's a fairly doable distance.
Have you ever been to Europa Island?
No, I have not been.
In the Mozambican Channel? That's where they breed in the winter months. Very interesting.
So there we go, Mozambique. Off the coast of Mozambique, it's a lot of them. Like I say, in Yaka, Benguela.
So very, very interesting to be sitting there and you get this very large bird that seems to be gliding and flying in the wind quite nicely. And we saw something yesterday on the dam cam that was just too quick for me to really say much, but it probably was, as you said, a sooty tern.
Maybe, yeah. So, but like I said, there's also white-winged terns, whiskered terns, grey-headed gull can be seen in this area, but those are birds that are inland terns. The gull and the whiskered and white-winged, you do get them inland. So it is possible. I don't know if you guys can see every now and then in this picture, but there's a tail flicking or an ear moving every now and then. It's not easy to see, but you can make it out. There we go. There's that line is now.
We were competing with your visuals last night from the same sort of position.
So really, that must have been difficult.
That's why I kept going back to the dam, because you obviously had far better view. Yes, I was watching on the TV screen here and I could see your views.
Far better view. Unfortunately, that line is now going behind this massive thick bush, so we're not going to be able to see much more of it. But it'll be the Talamatis. They're still around, kind of finishing up the last remains of their kill. Earlier, they were moving in this little gap here, so they came from behind those bushes up the hill. So I suspect most of the pride is still around.
Do you think they're hungry again? They're going to go back up to quarantine?
They've been eating the whole day.
Smash another wildebeest?
Who knows? They might have even got a fourth one. You don't know. At the end of the day, it's so far off the road that we can't really tell what's going on. But we'll keep an eye out for them.
But a very important question, Tristan. How is your hot chocolate?
Hot chocolate? I haven't even had it. It's so hot. Theo was trying to kill me with the hot chocolate, so I haven't even had it yet. But we'll have it now, because we're going to send all of you over to Kyle so we can taste our hot chocolate.
I can see the bottom right hand corner of the lot. Out of frame. Cool. Well, these springbuck are really giving us such a nice view now. And the sun, obviously being directly behind us, is just a fantastic view of these very beautiful but very dainty looking antelope. Doing a little bit of grooming there. That male, so the male is on the left, and then the little one is a female on the right, and she is pregnant. Her belly is looking fairly distended there on the right hand side, and then dropping fairly low, so giving me a very good indication that she's got a baba in her tum-tum. And this is obviously a favourable period for antelope to give birth. Some antelope are all-year breeders, and some are very, very specific within a few months or within a few weeks even. A few days. If you look at the Mara, a couple of days or a week or two, they'll give birth one go. As you can see that male on the left there, how he's busy grooming himself. He's combing through his fur with the bottom set of teeth. Antelope don't have top toofies, they only have bottom toofies. In the top section of their jaw, they have a dentine pad. And then with the bottom teeth, when they're cropping vegetation, that bottom set of teeth would then just be applying a lot of pressure on the dentine pad, and then the animal would turn its head to then cut the grass or vegetation which it's feeding. But then it is a very, very useful tool to comb through and remove debris, but then also just get to an edge where you can't get to that easily with your hooves. So using the bottom teeth to do a bit of grooming. And that dark brown stripe you can see running horizontal now with the belly across the side of the ribs. Very distinctive characteristic from that great question that was asked earlier. The difference of that between a springbok and impala. And then that very nice white face, and then that dark stripe running from the bottom of the eye right through the eye. Oh, look at the male on the left. A little bit of horn thrashing. Males do that sometimes, put their head into vegetation and they thrash around. Just one to show how strong he really is. That wildebeest has now moved off as well. There was a wildebeest that gave an alarm call when we were sitting here initially. I thought the dogs were on the move towards us. But then coming around the bush, he was just looking at us and alarm calling for us. Wow, these animals are in very good condition. It's always lovely just to sit and watch antelope. Whoa, Christian! Hello, what a great question. How fast can this little antelope run? A springbok can put down fifth gear. They can reach speeds of between 70 and 80 odd kilometers an hour. That is super fast from a little animal like this. And they are very agile. So if something's chasing them, they use speed to try and get away from the predator, but then they're also very agile. That means that they'll jump around. They've got almost like spring-loaded legs. They'll give these massive leaps and bouts to evade a predator. So between 70 and 80 kilometers an hour, but that is at a straight line, but that is super fast from this little antelope. That has to be one of the fastest antelope that we have in this area. If you go further north, northeast, Tsetse is very, very quick. But in this region over here, it's definitely a springbok. And you would never think that that little animal would move that quickly. And typically you'd see them in bigger herds. But it's not uncommon to see little groups like this here, just like we are seeing right now. And how lovely of them just to be standing there for us to be getting a good view of them. See the white-browed sparrow weaver nest in between them in the background there. And they are very adaptable little animals. I've got a lot of respect for springbok because of their agility when they run and their breakneck speed from the great question that was asked there. But then they're also they've got the remarkable ability to utilize different food sources. So they are able to graze, so eat off the ground, off grasses, and then they are also able to browse. So they're what we refer to as mixed feeders. So whatever is available throughout a given period, these little antelope can then tuck into that available food source. So they are really adaptable across the board of South Africa. Lisa, Tswalu does get a very large herd of antelope. So if you look at springbok, we can find groupings of 30 odd in a group. Oryx, you can find up to, between 10 and 20. Yesterday we saw a group, I think it was nearly 30 in a group. But then eland, which is one of the largest antelope that we have on the African continent. We have one or two herds that roam out west. They are very shy. They hear a vehicle and they storm off in the opposite direction. But we have herds out that way, Elisa, that are numbering nearly 200 plus animals in a herd. So when they move off, and if you're close by them, it literally sounds like thunder in the distance when these animals move. And through the dry season, they actually create this massive brown cloud or red cloud of dust as they move through the vegetation. It is remarkable to see. So we do have some larger herds, and then also depending on the time of year, if you look in the dry season, animals are kind of split up and they go in search of food, and then in the more favorable times they can socialize and be in larger groups. But really amazing to see and experience large herds. And if you go to East Africa, obviously you get very large herds where you have that annual migration of the beautiful wildebeest. But we are very lucky to see animals in that number in this day and age. Springbok also used to make a very large migration through the southern parts of Africa, along with eland, numbering millions and millions and millions of animals. All right, but we're going to go and search and see maybe where these wild dogs have gone to, and then we will see you guys when you get back here.
As you can see, it is still hammering down on Djuma. It's not relenting at all. I mean, the rain is just...
It's actually picked up again now, sounds like.
I mean, look at that. You can hardly see the horizon anymore. It's such a stark contrast to the beautiful sunshine that is in Tswalu, Kalahari at the moment. Yeah, I'm quite jealous of Carl and the sunshine there.
It's so lovely to see springbok as well, isn't it?
Always nice to see them. And also chatting about herds, big herds of animals. Both of us have been very fortunate in that we've spent some time in East Africa and seen the large herds firsthand. It's quite something when you roll through 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 animals. And the noise particularly is what
the smell and the dust. And do you know what I think is the most memorable about those herds? Is the flies.
Flies are
interesting.
Crazy. I mean, in Mara they're not as bad. There's a lot of flies, but when you're in the Serengeti, a lot of them are tsetsis, which are not funny at all.
Which mysteriously just fall inside the car and die, don't they?
They do. That one was in the car for too long, unfortunately.
I know the other day with Paul on the car, he was flapping and swatting at flies, and I said, "You have no idea, my friend."
Yeah, that's the thing. Things like tsetse are no joke at all. They're a very, very uncomfortable thing to have land on you and eat you. It's not nice, but it's part and parcel of being out there. It adds to the experience.
Were you not afraid of getting a sleeping sickness when you were up there last?
I mean, I didn't really think about it, if I'm honest with you. I was too engrossed in what we were doing. But yeah, I mean, it is a concern when you really kind of pull it down. It's something that can happen, but it's the same as malaria. Like, are you that concerned about malaria here?
You just can't think about it all the time, otherwise you'd just be worried. You got to live day to day, and
just take it as it comes, I'm afraid. That's just the way that things work out here.
Can there be lots more of those insects after these rains, though?
There's lots of mosquitoes after this. But anyway, we'll keep scanning around. I'm sure the lions have seen cover, given how hard that rain is coming down now.
Sitting quietly, everybody. I don't want to disturb this rhino just because of how close they are, and I've been lying down to try and get my head out of the shot, and I don't want to move because they are quite close to us now, and my sudden movement might give them a bit of a fright. So I'm currently having to look at them over my own legs where I'm lying flat on the driver's seat. But I cannot get over how inquisitive this little rhino calf is. He's looking at us, listening to us. And Glenn pointed out very early on the scrapes down their sides of their bodies from where they've been walking through the bush. And that thick hide of theirs has been brushing against sticks and bushes. They're probably about 5 meters from the vehicle. I know that doesn't sound very close, about 15 feet, but when the animal is close to that length, it's pretty close. There they go. That was just too fantastic, everybody. They came right up to the vehicle, that little calf coming to investigate us. Mandy, you're asking what age a rhino calf would normally leave its mother. Mandy, it's normally about between 2.5 years, sometimes a little bit later than that. But that's normally about the age when they'll move away from mom. And like we were discussing earlier, that's normally the age when that calf, still being not yet fully grown, and still looking for that companionship of having another rhino to hang around for safety, it will then go and attach itself to another mother that also has a calf. Obviously, that'll be quite a temporary relationship because that mother will then, of course, herself a little bit later on chase her calf away as she gets ready to have her new baby as well. And then those two sub-adults may then move away together. And just that group gives them safety in numbers, of course, and maybe a feeling of security. They're starting to move off back through the grassland again. It's quite bizarre because they came from that direction. They walked to the road. You saw the female defecate there in the road, and then they basically doubled back on themselves. And I think it's just because this little patch, this open area over my back, is just looking at it's relatively open, and the grass composition, the species composition, there's lots of really nutritious grasses. That's why the buffalo are here, and that's why these rhino are here too, and why they've doubled back on themselves more than likely. There's a lot of good forage there for the mother, and then that calf as well, looking at it, at how its size, the growth of its horn, it looks like it's still small enough and still young enough to maybe be suckling from mum every now and then, but it will be feeding on grass now at this age as well. But so nice. I was speaking earlier about how the wind can make rhinos quite skittish, and even for some reason sometimes they can be quite skittish around the vehicle for no apparent reason, or around other animals even. And in fact, I was just telling Glenn this story a couple of days ago. We watched a massive white rhino bull come walking down to a waterhole to come and drink, and we could see where he was going because there was a patch there, like a little smoothened off little bank where all the animals were coming down to drink, and that was the spot that he was heading for. You could tell he'd been there before, he knew the spot, and he came down into the edge of the waterhole, and he scent marked against a tree, and then he walked straight towards that little patch, and standing on that little patch where he would normally go and drink was a yellow-billed stork kind of bird, quite a large bird, but nothing that's going to be of any danger to a rhino. But he walked closer and closer, and the stork was sitting very still. It was early in the morning. The stork was sitting very still with its beak, its bill down over its neck, and it became aware of the presence of the rhino. And as the rhino got to about maybe 8 meters, maybe 25 feet or so away, the stork suddenly turned its head and looked over its shoulder at the rhino. And that movement made the rhino start. And even though it was this big 2,000 kilogram, 2-ton white rhino bull, the fact that the stork was standing in his spot where he was going to go and drink was enough to make him walk around to the other side of the waterhole to go and drink there. Sometimes they behave in the most bizarre ways. But that was super special to get to see that little calf come so close to the vehicle like that. Now, I don't know if any of you have been keeping a lookout at the pile of dung behind me, see if there's any dung beetles that have started to arrive there yet. Because if we could smell it, then surely the dung beetles must have. Doesn't seem like any yet, just yet. Tabo, you're asking a very interesting question. You're asking how rhinos will scent mark. So Tabo, what a male rhino will do, a male white rhino will do, is he will, if he defecates like that, he'll normally do it in a big pile called a midden, and he'll have several middens in his territory, and whenever he's going to defecate, he'll go to that spot and he'll defecate on that midden, and as he does so, he'll kick it with his back feet, his back legs, to break the dung open, to get the scent kind of impregnated onto his feet, that as he walks around his territory on his territorial patrols, his scent gets left on the ground. Of course, these white rhinos, you saw how they were walking with their heads very low to the ground, so then it's easy for the other rhinos to smell, ooh, there's a big bull here. If I'm a male rhino, I need to avoid this guy. If I'm a female rhino looking for a mate, then I should maybe come and leave my dung near to his dung so that he can smell that I'm in the area. They'll also, so that's whenever they find a midden, but they'll also use their urine. And so they'll back up to a bush. Sometimes they'll scrape their feet at the same time, and they'll spray a blast. It's like someone going with a high-pressure hose and spraying a blast of water. And it's this high-pressure blast of urine that comes out, and he'll spray that against bushes and against the ground. And then, like I said, often scrape his feet while he's doing that too. Awesome. We're going to leave these rhinos as they move off into the distance. We're going to head towards that mountain in front of us there, everybody. That's an area where there's been a young female leopard that's been hanging around quite a lot in the last couple of days and weeks. And we're going to see if now, with the setting sun, if we can't maybe find any sign of her. Let's go back across to Djuma, though, in the meantime, to Steve and Tristan.
Well, we had visual of baboons. We're just trying to find them again now. There we go. Also, I'm looking at one next to me, pointing. Why are you so loud in my ear?
It must be the sugar from the hot chocolate.
Exactly, yes. I feel like you're on a sugar high. Hot chocolate was delicious, though. It did well. I mean, it took him a while, but
it did. It took a lot of explanation to get hot chocolate made, which I was quite surprised about.
Anyway, it's all good. As you can see, we've got some baboons. These are the ones that were shouting at the lions a little bit earlier. They are looking like they are going to cause trouble today. They're heading for the lodge. But we have a sneaky weapon, Stephen.
What's the sneaky weapon?
The sneaky weapon is the fact that the dam is flooding and the drainage line is flowing, so they can't actually get to the dam.
Can't get across.
They're not going to be able to
They've gone the wrong way around.
They've gone the wrong way around. I'm sure because they're scared of the lions, and so now they're in that tree, which means they hopefully won't be coming into camp. As much as these guys are entertaining from afar, they're a nightmare to live with. They cause all kinds of havoc. Although they'll be okay now because there's a lot of food in the bush. There's a lot of marulas around. There's the white berry bushes are fruiting. Jackalberries have got some fruit on. Torchwoods will be soon. So these guys have a lot to eat in the bush now. The drought period was where they were really tough to deal with because they were so desperate for food. That they would come into camp and absolutely destroy the place. Whereas now they seemingly behaving themselves a lot better, not like their little counterparts, the vervets. They still haven't learnt any sort of...
Oh, the problem is they have learnt, that's, yeah.
Well, they have learnt bad behaviour, but they have no manners, that's for sure. And they typically causing havoc most days around camp. But this is pretty common to see at this time of the day, particularly in weather like this. I mean, it was absolutely thrashing down a few minutes ago. It seems to have eased off a bit and actually looks like it's getting a little bit brighter, which is good news.
We actually couldn't even hear each other speaking. The rain was so heavy on the roof.
It was so peaceful. I'm joking. So it was raining really hard, and these guys are all just seeking a bit of shelter. Sinak, yes, if they fall in the water, they can swim. I mean, they don't do breaststroke or butterfly, but
they do the baboon stroke.
The baboon stroke,
I think it's called.
But generally, you find with them is that they don't go into any water that's too deep for them to walk. So you do find them again, Chobe, Okavango Delta, wading around in the shallows.
They do that little funny jump, don't they?
They jump across rather than swim across, and they wade in the little shallows sometimes and eat the flowers from some of the plants that grow there, or bulbs that they can find, the water lettuce. Sometimes they get hold of that.
Jacana eggs, perhaps?
I mean, if they can find them, probably. We know how omnivorous they are, so anything they can really get hold of, they'll go after. But like most animals out here in Africa, is that they know full well that deep water means crocodiles, and that's why they try and avoid it as best they can. So if they can't wade it and they can't jump through it, then they really aren't interested.
I saw one years ago throwing a rock into the water.
Really?
Before going down and drinking. Throw the rock and then he'd walk a little bit to the left and have a drink. It was quite remarkable behaviour, actually.
That is remarkable.
Whoopsie, off he goes. So definitely very aware that there's dangers lurking.
Of course.
And the water's quite muddy now. Well, all the sediment and stuff would be stirred up and you wouldn't really be able to see much in the shallow.
These guys just got a fright. I'm sure maybe they've seen the lions. Should we try and have a little look quickly? Let's just see if the lions are around there.
Maybe they've come to drink.
Side of the dam. If they do come to drink, yesterday they were drinking at the outflow here.
Oh no, we couldn't see them. We tried.
But let's just see if we can pick up anything. No, nothing there.
Maybe they're right in front of the dam cam right now and we just don't know.
We don't, but we'll check there. Don't worry, Stephen. We'll get there. It's all about patience and perseverance when it comes to dam cam zooming. One has to check all angles. I don't see anything there, do you, Stephen?
No, I don't.
Wait, what's that there underneath the tree? Sorry, guys, the zoom is a bit...
It looks like a lion there.
There we go. So, look at that. Hey, those eyes, not bad.
That's not bad. I mean, you are getting old like me, but you're still seeing quite well for a gentleman of your age.
Does it look like two or just one?
Definitely looks like two.
Maybe, I'm not sure, but it's moving, that's for sure, underneath that tree. So, pretty much where they were. I don't know if it's the lone lioness or if the whole pride is there. So, not really sure. Did you get the name?
Yeah, Malinga baboons often will do a similar spot, but a very, very nicely chosen spot. It can often lead to it smelling really badly, but they will move from tree to tree from time to time within the same general area. But they can also move vast distances and have different sleeping spots in different trees. But they will pick very, very tall, comfortable trees to sleep in. But it's not uncommon to find them in the same tree again and again. Up in northern Kruger, we had a very nice big nyalaberry or mashatu tree that they used to roost in regularly, but they'd move between a few of those, and I think the smell also gets a bit too much for them from time to time.
Yeah, they do smell a lot, don't they?
They do.
It's not pleasant when especially if it's part of your camp and they're above. then you get...
Talking about the Kalahari, I've loved the story of friends of mine were in the Kalahari and they went camping, and they were in one of these little rest sites, these little camping sites, and they'd obviously gone and pitched in an open area because they'd learned something that others hadn't learned. And so they were there in the open without any shade. And there was this beautiful campsite there with this wonderful big shade tree. And these people arrived while everyone was on game drive. And they thought, wow, look at this wonderful campsite under this enormously shady tree. Everyone's parked in the sunshine. They must all not have a clue what they're doing. So these people set up their camp, set up their tents. As sunset fell, the baboons emerged from the wilderness and then roosted in the only tree available and rained down baboon poo throughout the entire evening. They woke up in the morning and realized why no one had been camping in that spot.
That's not nice. That's horrible. I actually once had have you ever had baboon thrown? I'll get there eventually. A baboon throw poo at you?
No, I have not.
So I was once with a friend, and it was like this kind of boys' weekend away at an 18-year-old, so you can imagine it was all over the show. And he had a farm.
See the theme here.
Yes, he had a farm out in the sort of northwest of South Africa. And we went there and we were, driving around on a night drive, just looking for things. I think we actually went to go try to see if we could find bush pigs. And they had these power lines that ran through the property, and up on the power lines the baboons used to sit there. And the friend of ours, we were on a pickup, so we were all on the back and he was driving, and he knew that they sit on these power lines, so he drove there and stopped and started chatting as though nothing was going on. And next thing, baboon poo was just being flung at us by these males who kind of defecate in their hand and throw it at you. It was the most heinous thing I've ever been through.
A nice 18-year-old ritual, huh?
Exactly, a friend to keep around, that's for sure.
And he was inside the pickup with the windows closed.
Exactly, so he didn't have to worry about it.
This was before social media, I'm sure, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. It was back in my youth, back in when TVs were still black and white. And no, it was long.
I've had vervet monkeys deliberately urinating or pooing to try get me.
Yeah.
And because you look, suddenly the stuff starts hitting the floor and you look up and they're looking at you with this look going, no, I missed.
Yeah, exactly. They definitely try aim, for sure. They even urinating.
They wait.
They wait and they see, and then they pick out a.
They look quite disappointed when they miss.
Exactly. I'm afraid our lions really aren't giving us much at the moment. They kind of, I think there's one at the bottom right there. Almost looks like a little...
Should we see if maybe one has come down to drink in front here? You never know.
Yeah, there's one there on the right-hand side, right up against the bush there. You can see quite a sort of solid, rounded shape that is there. Colleen, you're asking about snakes eating baboons. Yes, if they can get hold of one. A python will most certainly take a young baboon. But baboons are dangerous in their own right. Snakes are very wary of baboons because of how powerful they can be. Generally try and avoid them. Well, these views are not great, so I'm going to actually go back to the baboon since you guys are only asking questions about the baboons. Let's go back there, and I'll just check on my way for Stephen. Otherwise, he's going to shout at me.
I'd never shout. I'd just do my baboon loudness again.
Yes, exactly. Stephen?
Watch, if there was a lion here, you'd be like, oh, well...
Oh, I would call you an absolute hero. But alas, there's no lion, I'm afraid. Let's check the other pan to make sure not even any tracks either, Steve. Sorry, buddy. Not today, at least.
Well, the baboon's like almost as if... Because something must have moved for them to suddenly have behaved like that.
I'm sure it was that lioness that we picked up there.
Oh, there they are on the left.
They're in Hosanna's tree. So we had a very cool, well, not we, one of the zoomies at the time, who was operating the dam cam a few years ago, got a very cool sighting of Hosanna taking a kill up this tree on the right-hand side. Not the dead one, the one with leaves. And then lions from the Nkuhuma Pride actually climbing and stealing it from him, which was pretty crazy. There's some really cool footage that they managed to get.
Some of you might not have heard the name Hosanna before. He is a household name in these parts. He was a young male leopard in the area for some time. And he's dispersed a little bit more to the south. So you might hear his name from time to time. But the baboons are searching for food in all of the places. And well, we're going to stay with him a little longer and see what other sort of antics they get up to.
No, we're not. We'll carry on looking at the antics. We're not going to send you guys anywhere because let's see if I'm sure this one is looking for scorpions and little beetle grubs and things in the bark. You
Do
often
you think he's
see
barking up the wrong tree, Justin?
Oh, goodness.
I was asking. It was a relevant question. He was pulling bark off, and the tree was looking pretty dead.
The dad jokes continue. Exactly. Between you and Marcel and Emma, when she used to work here, you guys had dad jokes for days. Trishala, one of our other presenters,
It pays to have a little bit of humour from time to time, I think.
It does.
Definitely helps the rainy days pass by a little bit faster.
It does. But I'm not sure all dad jokes are humorous, though.
I think someone out there laughed.
I'm sure many laughed. I'm afraid I didn't. I'm sorry.
No, you didn't. It's been a while since you've laughed at one of my dad. Marcel just looks at me blankly. I actually need to stop with Marcel because he doesn't seem to get my humour at all.
Or he just comes up with another one. He doesn't laugh, but then tells another dad joke that's equally as dry or... Oh, there goes our baboon. All right, we're going to watch this baboon slide down the tree, and we'll see what else these guys get up to as they disappear in the long grass.
I've seen something I've never seen here before. Look at these cubs. One is crossing the river. It's being washed away, unfortunately, but I'm sure the mother is going to save her. Look at that. How beautiful. Look at that. One crossing, two to go. How cool is this?
Expect the unexpected here on Wild Earth daily.
This is Rusty. He's my favorite vehicle, and we've been through all the good times here in the bush. Now, if you feel a connection to Djuma Game Reserve like I do, then we have a fantastic opportunity for you. You can have your name engraved on a brushed metal plaque, just like this one, and we will attach it to Rusty so you can always be with us on safari in spirit. We will even send you a digital photograph once your plaque is mounted on Rusty. Spaces are limited, so grab your spot now.
Do you dream of traveling to a far-flung wilderness location where life continues as normal? A place where you can escape to nature and breathe. If you become a Wild Earth explorer, then this could soon become a reality. Subscribe today and stand a chance to win regular travel prizes. Wild Earth Explorers, it's in your nature. Have you been watching Wild Earth and dreamt of being right there on safari with one of the guides? Well, now you can. Wild Earth is offering you a chance to buy a ticket to dream. You or a friend can hop on board a live Wild Earth show and join our guide on safari. The ticket is redeemable at any of our locations, anytime in the future. Only a limited number of tickets are available, so don't wait. Get your ticket now and start dreaming. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, I'm Kyle, and I come to you live every day here from Tswalu, Kalahari in South Africa. My favorite bird has to be the sociable weaver. The enormous nest that they create, their survival tactics to inhabit these harsh and unforgiving environments, and as well as their complex social arrangements is truly remarkable. And the interconnectedness with the ecosystem shows us that we are too.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
Well, we're just trying to scan now because we had another lioness, or looked like a lioness, walking. It could have been one of the young males, but we've lost it now behind this big, thick bank of vegetation on the left-hand side. So I don't know if it's moved away now. They look like they're going up towards Tumbeta. We'll come back across. They kind of last saw them moving from left to right here and away behind these thickets. I suspect, though, that they've maybe finished this carcass and are now leaving it. Maybe that's what's happened. I don't know, Stephen. Visuals weren't very good, so hard to say what's actually going on with our lines there. But I would imagine that most of the pride must be there. Surely there can't be any sign. I mean, the rest of the pride couldn't have left just one there, I don't think.
Who knows what goes on in their minds sometimes. Maybe they have decided to go north again, but going towards quarantine, it seems like maybe Tumbeta, they'll drink a little pan there.
Yeah, either that or maybe they've heard more wildebeest up on the open clearing and it's going to be round 2 of the hunting escapades. I'm not sure. There's definitely nothing there anymore. So we'll keep scratching around. We'll keep trying to see if we can get views of them in the meantime. Send you back across to Damon at Phinda.
Welcome back to Ambient Phinda. It seems like the only animals we can find this afternoon are white rhinos and giraffes, but there's something very interesting going on here, everybody. Look at this giraffe that's right in front of us. See how he's busy chewing. But if you watch his mouth, he's chewing quite strangely. Whatever he's got in his mouth, he's rolling it from the one side of his mouth to the other. And he's been chewing on it for quite a few minutes now. He's just chewing it. He's not swallowing. And what he's done is he's bent down and he's picked up a bone. There's the remains of a zebra here. A zebra that was killed by lions about 2 years ago. And so there's lots of bones lying all over the place. And quite a few of these giraffes have been picking up bones and then standing up and then chewing on them. And that's a behavior that we often see with giraffes, where they'll chew on little rib bones or little leg bones, little vertebrae, just as a means for them to supplement their diet with a bit of extra calcium. Maybe even a bit of phosphorus as well. But look at him. His lips flexing up and down. Oh, there's a giraffe right behind us. It's coming towards us as well. There's currently 3 giraffes, everybody, all chewing on bones. Heather, you're asking if I think that the weather has made these giraffes more active. Heather, I think that the cool is certainly encouraging them to move around a bit. But I also think that the fact that it stopped raining has just given the animals, maybe they're just a bit more ready to move around. They've probably would have been kind of hunched over. Maybe not so much the giraffes, but the smaller antelope like the impala. Animals like the leopard we're looking for, they would have all kind of hunched over, hunkered down, tried to get out the rain as much as possible. Big giraffes like this, not really too many places where you can go if you're a big tall giraffe to try and get away from the rain. But we did venture out a little bit earlier today in the pouring rain to check on some of the water holes and see if they were filling up. And we did see a giraffe that had basically reversed into a bush to try and keep his body and his lower parts of his neck out of the rain. So he was also kind of hunkered down and hunched over. So I think, yeah, the fact that the rain has now stopped, the animals can now move around a bit more. Everything's nice and clean. All the dust has been washed off of the leaves, off of the grass. The grass will be starting to sprout new shoots. A time of plenty for all the herbivorous animals. But what's been really impressive though is to see how some of the water holes have filled up. Obviously rain is fantastic, and soaking rain to get the grass to flush green and grow fresh growth is wonderful. It feeds the animals, but we've had quite a bit of soaking rain so far already this season. What we've been missing is a heavy downpour that causes a bit of surface runoff and then fills up the water holes. And that's what it seems like we've got that. We've only really been able to check one water hole, and I'm very excited to go see the others to see how they're doing. Somebody asking how tall giraffes can grow. A big male giraffe can get to about between 5 and 5.5 meters tall from the ground to the top of his head. So that's about 15 to close to 17 feet. It's a very tall animal. Just thinking about it, I don't know if any of you have been to, or some of you have been to a swimming pool where they have diving platforms. There's the springboards, and then there's the diving platforms. And normally the platforms are at 5 meters, 7.5 meters, and 10 meters. And you stand up on top of that 5-meter platform even, and you look down, and that's a long way up. And that's how high that giraffe's head is above the ground. It's a very big animal. Sorry, Glenn, just have a look on the left here. There's 5 giraffes that are currently all trying to find bones to chew on. 2 of them have got bones already and are busy chewing on the bones. And there's another 2 or 3 that are bending down and trying to pick bones up. Glenn and I had a good laugh. We just watched now. We just watched one trying to pick a bone up off of the ground, and it's quite a process. It's not like stripping leaves off of a branch. You know, that tongue of theirs, while it's good at maneuvering in between thorns and plucking the juiciest leaves, it's a bit tougher to kind of wrap it around a slippery bone. But it seems like some of them are managing. It's quite funny how some of them as well, look at that one, it's all frisky. He bends down and he tries to pick up the bone. And then if he misses, he does like this little giddy up afterwards. Might be a bit of nerves, obviously, for these giraffes. With that long neck, bending that head down, all the way down to the ground. Quite a vulnerable position for them to be in. If a predator like a lion were to surprise them and somehow grab a hold of their head or of their neck, wouldn't be able to get away. Striped horse, you're asking a very interesting question. You're asking if giraffes have taste buds. And striped horse, to be honest, I have not read anything about that. There are certainly trees that they seem to prefer feeding on. And then there's the whole function of tannins in plants, whereby if a tree is being fed on, it starts to produce those tannins, those chemicals that make the plant distasteful. And that's what then ultimately causes the giraffe to stop feeding on that plant. And so by that logic, striped horse, I would have to say that yes, they do. I mean, if that's what the literature, that is what the literature says, that it makes the plant distasteful to eat, the chemicals building up, the tannins building up. And if that's what makes the giraffe stop eating, then perhaps it is their taste, or the taste of the plant, that makes the giraffe stop. Look, there's one on the right there that's just got a little, quite a long bone actually. Look, it doesn't look like it's from the zebra. It looks like a broken off femur, maybe from a smaller antelope like an Inyala or an Impala. And he's now got it in his mouth and he's busy chewing it. But it sounds like Tswalu's still with their wild dogs still. So we're going to leave these giraffes to carry on looking for bones to chew on. And we're going to keep on searching this little area at the base of the mountain here to see if there's any sign of this young female leopard.
Right, we have been running around, up and down. We've got assistance from other guides, and we have located on something. You see them there? Just give us 1 second. The grass is very long, so it makes things a little difficult just behind this bush here, Craig. The grass is so long that this animal just absolutely disappears. There. Yes! Look at that. Yes! Hello, beautiful. patience is key, and then a little bit of persistence. Just to the left there, to the left. And we have come up lucky with this beautiful animal. So I fought for you a bit. Well, let's see if we can get a bit closer, Craig. Folks, what we're going to do is we're just going to take the vehicle off-road here. They are going to an area where we can't see them. I don't really enjoy off-roading. But for this instance over here, we can't see them from the road, and they are going to that thick stuff. So what we're going to do is we're going to go off shortly. There they are there. You see them? Oopsie. Okay. Let's go up a little bit closer here. And let's see if we can get a better view of these amazing and incredible creatures. So you can smell them. Wild dogs have a very distinctive odor to them. Ooh, very rocky here. And normally you can smell wild dogs before you actually see them. At the moment, a great question was asked there, how big is the wild dog pack at Tswalu? At the moment, we're currently 4 in this one and only pack. And we are hoping that within the upcoming days, yes, going up the mountain, I hope in the upcoming months, that we have new additions. They are fresh out of quarantine, so to say. And these dogs are really exploring and understanding the diverse and very vast landscape of Tswalu. There, right on the mountain, they're moving up. You can just see the tail moving. Just watch it, there it comes. Got it? Got it. Look at that. When do you ever get to say you've got the ability to view a wild dog on a mountain? So there's only 4 at the moment in this pack, and this is the only pack in Tswalu. We went through a bit of a reshuffling phase where we had to relocate other dogs because of genetic diversity to basically allow a greater diversity of the species, because the population across the board of Africa is not very large. And this is basically a new genetic pool, so to say, within Tswalu. And you want to ensure genetic diversity to the highest degree, because if you have a depletion of that gene pool, you become susceptible to diseases and other funny things if you're not a strong genetic code, so to say. The more diverse the animal is in its genetics, the more capabilities it has to meet foreign things like diseases. And wow. Fiona, how do the dogs and hyenas, brown hyenas, react? So if a brown hyena had to be on a kill, being 4 dogs, a brown hyena, I've seen a brown hyena stand its ground to 4 African wild dogs. If the pack was larger, then the brown hyena would opt to move off fairly swiftly, let's say it that. It's all about numbers. A brown hyena is a very shy and very elusive animal, but if the numbers are in its favor, it will stand its ground. But if not, it'll opt to flee rather. Spotted hyena, on the other hand, spotted hyena and lions are very, very dominating apex predators. They will not shift out the way for a wild dog. If there's a few of them, maybe, they'll take on a spotted hyena. But a lion, I've never actually seen interaction of a lion and that of wild dog. So I'd really be speaking out of context. But I think there's enough of them, and if they thought they had the upper hand, they could give a lion a bit of a run for its money, especially a lioness. Wow, look how far they're going up that mountainside. Now, when it comes to tracking up there, it is virtually impossible. And when we do track up there, what we do is rely on our sense of smell. How bad do they smell? So, yeah, when we're looking for them up in these mountains, they have got a very pungent odor. On a scale from 1 to 10, I would say they're a ripe 7. A ripe 7. They have the behavior of rolling in everything from carcasses that have been laying there for a long time to different carnivores scat. They have the behavior of rolling in everything that they find, just like a domestic dog would do to kind of coat itself. They do exactly the same. So they've got a very mixed, pungent odor, very musky, very sharp, almost like socks type of smell. Musky, wet old socks mixed with a bit of wet dog. Very, very distinctive. Okay. Well, brief it was, but nonetheless such a treat. You still got them there, Craig? Yeah, still busy moving up. You can see those white tails. A very, very important tool. So when they're running through the bush, obviously those coats allow them to blend in. You can see they are absolutely perfectly suited for this environment. But you'll see that when those dogs move, you'll find there'll be a very distinctive white tip at the end of the tail. And when members have made a kill, other members that still have to join will actually look for the tails, which would be erect. And those white tips become beacons for other pack members to be drawn in to this meal. There they go, up to the top left-hand corner. Wow, look at that. Wow. Well, what a treat that was. But for now, we're going to see if they're going to come out on the other side. I highly doubt it. But for now, we're going to send you off over to Tristan and Steve at the dam.
Well, very cool that Carl managed to find the dogs. Also on the mountain, which actually is a pretty cool thing, because we'll get into that now. We did
have
a
new
hyena.
species now. It's now called the mountain dog. Or...
The mountain dog, yes. Now, I have a cool fact about dogs and mountains. They are the species that has been recorded the highest on Mount Kilimanjaro. So they have gone almost to the summit of Kilimanjaro as wild dogs.
Wild dogs?
Yep. With the animal that's been found the highest on Mount Kilimanjaro, followed by leopard and elephants.
What on earth were they doing up there?
Exploring. Being a wild dog.
Sniffing around.
Just doing their thing. You know how they are.
My uncle's been up. He said it was wonderful.
I thought you were going to say your uncle's a wild dog. Sorry? I'm not sure this is the right show for that.
A couple of my friends have been up. He's been up. Said it was hard, but worthwhile. So you'd wonder what the dogs would be doing going up there. That's very interesting.
Maybe just exploring, checking out new terrain, maybe looking for a dead site. So we're trying really hard to be able to find things, but with the rain and the fact that it's dark and we've had to go into infrared, we're really struggling with being able to pick things up. We get eyes every now and then, and there was a hyena that briefly kind of came past where the lions were and moved up towards quarantine, but that's all we've managed to find. Hippos have now left as well, and you can see the kind of rain blowing in.
It's that lovely sideways rain that really gets me, hey?
It's my favourite rain.
Favourite rain.
Luckily we're in FCN. Hyena.
You can hear them. Two hyenas calling there.
There it comes down the slope. I'll try and get it. It's on the right-hand side here. The problem is with infrared. Infrared works in a way where it basically bounces off the first thing that's in front of it. You might just be able to see hyenas. Two of them coming down the slope. You see tails erect. So that calling that you're hearing is them telling other clan members. It's really tricky with this bush in the foreground. There we go. We'll try and get it. I know it's not great, but the camera is really struggling to focus with the rain coming in. So we'll just have to bring it back a little bit and we'll see glowy eyes for now.
I think we might see lions explode out of the left.
Maybe, but look, they're coming towards us, which is nice. Maybe they're going to come down to the little pan in front of the camera. If they come past these bushes, we'll get a much better view of them because the bush won't absorb all the light. See, it's just struggling to be able to focus, unfortunately, with these little raindrops. But maybe it'll be nice to see lions exploding.
You didn't see one last night with the lions, did you?
Nothing, but there's 3 of them. You see there's another one here on the right of the...
They must know.
Is that a lion or is that a hyena?
That looks like a lion to the right, eh?
It does, doesn't it? No, another hyena that's over there. So hyenas are descending on these kills pretty quickly now. Alright, well, we can't go any further zooming-wise because the rain is just causing absolute havoc with focus. But interesting to see, and hopefully we'll get some really nice audio in the next little bit.
Wow. From the wild dogs to the moon. A very special treat to see this big chunk of cheese in the air. And we are progressing onto full moon right now. So it's what we refer to as a waxing moon. Growing from new to full. And obviously a very, very important effect it has on this whole beautiful blue planet. Making a huge effect and making a huge effect on tidal waters, coastal and as well as lagoons. And then as well as you look at animal behavior also changes, especially for werewolves, which I'm just joking, has a big effect on animal behavior. The cicada rhythms they refer to as, basically the moon and the sun, cicada rhythms. Amazing. But if you think about that moon isn't that far away. If you look at astronomical distances, I mean, when we're talking astronomical, we're talking light years, which is very, very far. The moon from the Earth is only about 384,000 kilometers, which is not far in terms of the vast distance or the scope of the universe. And then it only has a diameter of about 4,500 kilometers across. But a very beautiful scene right now. And why we can see that full moon picture is because of the position of the moon, where it is within its orbit, along with the sun. And its face being fully illuminated. And obviously we only see that one side. And that's pretty remarkable, seeing one side of the moon. But something very, very special. We are starting to get onto that dusk period. And so our main focus now would be the moon and all the settling down sounds of the Kalahari. You can see how that landscape has changed. It was bright and beautiful a couple of minutes ago. And now it's this uniform, very sleepy, easygoing mountainside. Lovely.
Can just make out a few hyenas. I unfortunately can't go any closer than what we are at the moment because, like I say, we just lose all ability to focus. So it's just a wide view of hyenas moving around. I mean, tell you which hyenas are there is near impossible. We just know it's dam cam and it's 3 adults. Whether they're male or female is pretty much a gamble, wouldn't you say, Steve?
Well, they're very brave. I mean, they're very hard to know where the lions are. The smells, the wind, it would be a bit of a swirling, a bit of edgy, wouldn't it?
Exactly. Look, I mean, we haven't heard any sounds of lions growling. I'm of the opinion the lions have left. The way the hyenas are kind of moving around, you can see one sort of straight in the middle of the screen there that eyes every now and then. I'll try and see if we can get our focus right.
So they might have passed the lions on quarantine and they knew. Okay, let's go.
You can just see those eyes behind the bush and some ears moving a little bit, but it's really not fantastic view, I'm afraid. It's the way it goes.
There's some
excitement.
excitement.
Talking about hyenas and lions, there they all come running. Where's the lion? There's going to be a lion after them at some point. When you see hyenas all bolting across a screen like that, generally it's being followed by a cat somewhere. The kill is somewhere to the right here. I mean, we can't get the camera that far. So I suspect maybe a lion came bursting out of the bush there somewhere and stood over the kill.
I don't think hyenas can count over 10. They would have counted 10 lions and be like, they must all be there, not realizing that there's 14.
Exactly. There's the hippos in the background.
See, the hippo likes my jokes, Justin.
I see that. So it's enjoying the hyena joke. I'm on the side of the fact that the hyenas probably can count very well because they seem to get themselves out of tight spots all the time. But talking about lions and other predators, hyenas are the one thing that can actually compete with lions. You'll find that, like things like the wild dogs that Carl was talking about, they really aren't going to tangle with lions too much. Leopards avoid it as much as they can, as well as cheetahs. So it's really just hyenas that will go toe-to-toe with lions and sometimes be successful. Now, here's a question that, Steve, you can kind of start off with.
The toughest thing about being a guide, well, I mean, I've had so many different experiences over the years to get me to where I am. What I think through the training I did, what came through very strongly was situational awareness, was people's ability to be able to switch on all of their senses. That was something I found with many people that especially people come from cities, that you need to really be able to be attuned to the bush. And you can agree with that your eyesight, your smell, your hearing needs to really be top notch. And that ability to also trust that gut instinct is once you can get in tune with those things, I think you can do really, really well. The knowledge comes. The knowledge is just grind work. You've just got to keep learning.
And being out there. Ultimately, the more you're out there, the more you're going to experience and the more you're going to get to know. So knowledge is a thing that you will acquire every day. The bush teaches you something new all the time and is always changing. It's never constant. So you can't expect to go and hit the books and know everything. Also, it's area specific. What leopards and lions and hyenas do here at Djuma is not exactly what they do at Tswalu Kalahari. It's slightly different because of the terrain. So I agree with you in that regard. I think situational awareness is one thing.
That's the one thing we test for most comprehensively in the Trails Guide. Walking is the ability to be able to hear everything. It's a bit of a downfall in my life now these days, I suppose, because I see and I hear everything, even in normal human settings. I observe more than I need to sometimes, and it's an overload of information.
So you reckon that for you is the hardest part, is that of becoming a guide?
No, I don't think for me specifically, but I mean, I grew up in Johannesburg. That taught me a lot of situational awareness. But through the guides that I trained, I noticed that situational awareness, together with driving, being situation aware while driving or being situation aware while walking, was something that took people a lot more effort to really grasp.
Fair enough. I think for me, the hardest part about becoming a guide, and this is going to be probably a long-winded answer, but there's two parts to it. One is the number of opportunities versus the number of people guiding. I have a huge kind of issue with it, is that I feel like here in South Africa particularly, we churn out guides at a rate of knots, often underqualified for what they are about to get themselves into, with very limited opportunities, because the cost of becoming a guide versus the opportunities that you're going to get are completely disproportionate, and it's leading to a lot of foreign people coming to do guiding courses because it looks like a holiday job due to social media and things like that. And a lot of South Africans are not actually able to even afford it, or anywhere, I mean, this is true of many places, are not able to afford the cost of becoming a guide versus what they're actually going to earn when they start to become one. So that one is one of the most difficult parts, is to
gain that experience.
Well, to get the qualification and the job into the industry. I think that really, really is a tough part of guiding. And the second thing for me is that once you've gotten that point, is that the reality is that you need to pretty much forget about having birthdays with family, weddings, seeing friends regularly, your relationships with your closest people around you suffers a huge amount due to being a guide. You're spending 6 weeks of your life completely removed from everybody else. You form relationships at the lodge because you're going through the same things. But this is something that never gets spoken about when people are wanting to become guides. Everybody's always like, oh, it's amazing. You're going to go and drive a vehicle and you're going to go see lions and leopards and all these kinds of things. Great. That is amazing. And it is something that I'll always cherish. But the reality is that life as a guide has some drawbacks. And it's never spoken about because everyone doesn't want anyone to hear about these things, you know.
Another point to add to that one, it's very, very important, is many people want to become guides because they love animals. And that's a very valid point. Of course, you need to love the bush, you need to love wildlife. But as a guide, what are you exactly? You're a people manager.
Exactly.
And if you don't like people, you're an introvert, you don't like to hang out with people, you don't like to socialize, then becoming a guide is probably one of the most challenging things you'll ever do.
Exactly.
It teaches you. My public speaking has become really good. I think even getting into this job was much easier because of the amount of guiding that I did, the amount of talking and the ability to come out of myself.
But in saying that, this is very far removed from being a guide.
Very far.
It's a very different experience talking to a camera as opposed to being with the guest. It's not the same thing in any shape or form. And
definitely develops the confidence, though.
It does, and I think there's actually something in that presenter guiding and normal guiding could almost be split out into two different qualifications in many ways. But it's an in-depth topic, and it's like something that I feel very strong about and could probably go on a lot longer about these kinds of things.
But maybe we should send them back over to some animals?
Yes, it's probably a better idea.
Should we send them over to Swallow, maybe?
Yes, let's
see what they've got.
Ooh la la, look at that. 100% eye candy right there. And you can see how marvelous the clouds make the sunset. Those rays peeking through a little gap there, and then just the landscape, the dark scene of the landscape, the illuminate top parts of the cloud is just stunning. Oh, wow. Well, as we sit here on the Great Plains of Africa, I thank you, everybody. That is very beautiful. The barking geckos are in full swing, looking for a potential mate, and then also displacing other individuals. Obviously, that vocalization is establishing that individual in that area, as into where you want to eliminate physical interaction or conflict. And there's such a perfect sound to the Southern Kalahari sunset. Susan, I couldn't agree with you more. Susan from America, sunsets on this side of the world are just something else. I don't know what it is. If it's the open landscape that we just see so much more, or is it the ocean, where it obviously beams up and then shoots that light across. It is just so amazing. And if you look at all the field guides and their Instagram posts, you'll find that us as guides are also just so into the sunsets, because you'll find most of the posts are all about sunsets and sunrises. Wonderful. We are so lucky as humans to be looking at that and to understand it, and appreciate it. It is such a privilege. And a very important thing to watch the sunset together. We are social beings, and having such a beautiful scene to watch together is just remarkable. Patterson, I'm glad that we are with you. I'm glad you're with us through these beautiful moments through the Sunset Safari. And what a beautiful platform this is, the Safari Live experiences. I mean, to share this with the world is just such a treat. I could be geeking out by myself here, but geeking out with all of you is just so much better. If you ever have the luxury of visiting the Southern Kalahari, I want you to try and find that little creature, that little barking gecko. They are very tricky to find. Craig making it look so much better. Sure. Is everything really slowing down now? Nana, yes, the sound of the barking gecko is a typical and very, very prominent sound through the Kalahari, especially through summer. And it is really one of the true calls that I feel almost in touch with in the Kalahari. It's a very, very distinctive, but yet a very, very prominent call heard throughout this area.
For the month of January 2021, we are offering a chance to win a unique Wild Earth expedition to the magnificent Tswalu Kalahari. From the ancient Kortai's Koranenberg Mountains to the southern Kalahari's red sand dunes, Tswalu offers what travelers crave most: space and time. The winner will explore this landscape in a vehicle, on foot, or on horseback, with a chance to go behind the scenes with Wild Earth and of course meet the meerkats. The prize includes a 3-night stay for you and a friend at the luxury Motse Lodge, including flights from either Johannesburg or Cape Town. Open to all Wild Earth explorers who have signed up before the end of January 2021. Terms and conditions apply.
Hi, my name is Taylor McCurdy and I'm coming to you from Eco Training here on Pridelands. My most favorite animal in Africa has to be the elephant that's behind me, and this is Kumo, you'll meet him. But elephants just in general, they're really sociable, they're always doing something, and I love to see the interactions between the members of the herd.
Catch up with the guides daily here on Wild Earth.
My name is Lauren and I'm currently working in Djuma Private Game Reserve here in South Africa. I love answering your questions during the live safaris. It's my favorite part. It feels like you're on the vehicle with me and I'm able to teach you exactly what you want to know. If you want to ask a question on Wild Earth, then you need to register on our website. Once registered, you must go to the live safari page and ask your question below the live feed.
In a world full of upheaval, we all need a quiet and safe space to breathe. A place where anxiety and stress don't exist. A place where life carries on as normal. Escape to nature with Wild Earth.
And when you think it could not get better, Mother Nature says, hold on tight. And that would be like something out of The Lion King. I can hear the song now, guys. I'm not going to be singing it, Craig. Craig wants me to sing it. I've got quite a good voice, but in the shower. Viewer discretion is advised. That's incredible. So at this point is where all the nocturnal creatures would start coming in the next half an hour or so. And they'll start their day's work, going out foraging, looking for mates, protecting. So a whole new shift would start now. That's super, sure. Very, very cool. The temperature's dropped off quite a bit. We must be at around about 22 now, 21. And we've got a slight breeze coming from behind us. It's just cooling things off nicely. Thank you to all the viewers for this wonderful drive. Thank you for joining us on this live and interactive safari. It's been absolutely magical having you guys on board. And to all the colleagues across the other side, to their efforts and their dedication and their passion and their knowledge, thank you for sharing. It's been incredible sharing with you guys. Be sure to join us tomorrow for the Sunrise Safari. Till now then, see you later.
Yeah.